Chapter 1937. After all, it was a supreme-grade sacred weapon that contained the remains of a true dragon and even its spirit. In the collision between two saint-level experts, its potential was unleashed and it could easily kill a divine transformation realm expert and seriously injure a sage. Naturally, he had to avoid it. This Zhang guy is really tyrannical. It's just that he's too reckless. So what if he withstood the blow that consumed his blood essence? What if the other party self-destructs? Can he withstand it? The self-detonation of a half-saint god is the most powerful. Li Yichen was still lying on the ground, hiding his body and chattering away. It's actually the true dragon halberd. Out of the blue, a cold light shot towards him like a meteor. It was too late for him to dodge. He let out a scream and was instantly crushed by the magic power of the halberd. Even his body and soul were turned into fine powder and green smoke, disappearing from this world. I'll die just lying down? Before he died, his face was still full of astonishment and fear. He did not expect that he, the first disciple of the Archaean sect, a peerless genius, would die so miserably without knowing why and so sullen. However, at this time not many people noticed his death. He's dead. Fairy Qingjue sensed it and only sighed regretfully, but she was not very sad. Li Yichen had shown underestimation of the enemy, laziness, cowardice and unkindness in this dispute, which had already disappointed her greatly. She planned to strip him of his many positions in the sect and expel him from the sect after this matter was over. In this way it would save her a lot of trouble and she would not appear to be unkind. He actually ended up like this. Lin Dai's beautiful eyes also flashed with sadness. Li Yichen was young, handsome and elegant. He was talented and had an extraordinary foundation. More importantly, he handled matters calmly and appropriately. He treated people like a spring breeze. This was definitely not something that Jiang Tian, who looked low-key but was actually arrogant, could compare to. However, his strength was still too weak. He actually fell into the trap while watching Jiang Tian's battle. Who could he reason with? The others did not pay attention to Li Yichen's death. After all, it was rare to see a battle between saints. Moreover, it was related to the safety of Saint Origin World. At this time, who would pay attention to a small fry like Li Yichen? Now that the battle has reached this point, the only path left for the Decimating Abyss is to self-destruct. With the Decimating Abyss's ability, even regenerating from a drop of blood and rebuilding a fleshly body is nothing difficult. For soul formation grand cultivators, self-destruction is the real meaning of death. Elder Gu Nangongyu and many other big shots were watching the scene with burning eyes. Their faces were extremely solemn. They knew that the battle between Jiang Tian and the Decimating Abyss had already reached its final juncture. Victory and defeat would be decided in these few seconds. Would the Decimating Abyss choose to self-destruct? Would Jiang Tian be able to withstand the terrifying destructive power of a god's self-destruction? The power of a god's self-destruction should be similar to that of a blood sacrifice to a holy weapon. Since fellow Daoist Jiang was able to withstand the might of the Decimating Abyss's sacrificial holy weapon, he would naturally be able to withstand the self-destruction of a god. The strength of fellow Daoist Jiang's physical body is simply unprecedented. However, Elder Gu and Saintess Qingju firmly believed that Jiang Tian's victory was already decided. Moreover, they believed that the possibility of the Decimating Abyss choosing to self-destruct and perishing together with Jiang Tian was extremely low. With the Decimating Abyss's rich battle experience and vision, they could naturally see that even if a god self-destructed, it would be difficult to kill Jiang Tian. The so-called perishing together was not realistic. More importantly, the Decimating Abyss had no enmity with Jiang Tian. Moreover, he was all alone without a sect, disciples, relatives, or even clansmen. He did not have the kind of spirit and motivation to sacrifice himself for his descendants, bloodline, and roots. He would definitely choose to protect himself. As expected, just as Jiang Tian took a step forward calmly and was about to capture the golden true dragon halberd, the golden true dragon halberd that had originally become dim and lightless like a mortal artifact suddenly shone. It let out a resounding dragon roar and actually turned into a ball of golden light, enveloping the god of the Decimating Abyss and fleeing into the distance. The golden true dragon halberd actually escaped. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. In their impression, the reputation of the golden true dragon halberd was not inferior to that of the Decimating Abyss. In the ancient era, it had killed countless people and left millions of corpses behind. It was an invincible existence. It could completely kill a void reversion saint, but it was actually forced to flee by a nascent soul cultivator like Zhou Xian. No. It's the decimating abyss that's escaping. Elder Gu's gaze was focused and a just as I expected smile appeared on his lips. The decimating abyss has a soul refined and nurtured in the sacred weapon, so he can control it freely. However, he has already lost the ability to fight fellow Daoist Zhang. This sacred weapon is made from the remains of a pure-blooded true dragon combined with supreme-grade black gold, refined by a supreme giant of the ancient era using laws and great Daos. It can be said to be indestructible, so the decimating abyss very cleverly used it to protect himself. Although fellow Daoist Zhang is powerful, whether or not he can shatter this supreme-grade sacred weapon is still uncertain. Nangong Yu said worriedly. The abyssal demon dragon had once wreaked havoc in an era, bringing endless darkness, slaughter and chaos. If it was lucky enough to escape this time, reconstruct its body and make a comeback, it would bring endless calamity to this land. He wants to escape to the critical canyon and the evil-infested ridge? Suddenly, a spectator exclaimed. That's right. The evil chi there is heavy and to human cultivators, it is dangerous. However, it is the best place for him to reconstruct his body and recover his cultivation. Hearing this, someone's expression drastically changed and wanted to break his leg. This place was not far from the critical canyon and the evil-infested ridge. With the speed of the decimating abyss, it only needed the time of 3 incense sticks to burn to reach there. Once this happened, Zhang Tian would fall into a passive situation. Whoosh! Passing self Zhang Tian turned into a Kuan Ping lightning bolt, and with one step he chased after the golden true dragon halberd with an unparalleled speed. Finally, after 10 flicks of the fingers and tens of thousands of miles away, passing self Zhang Tian finally caught up. Passing self Zhang Tian didn't say anything and slapped down with his palm. This palm gave people the feeling of a vast continent pressing down, causing the laws below to shatter and the grand Tao to be annihilated. Under this palm, heaven and earth were turned upside down. The decimating abyss god only had time to let out a miserable howl before he was completely annihilated. At this moment, the heavens and the earth were dead silent. Countless people were shocked and lost their voices. In the area of 100 Flowers Peak, astral winds howled in the sky, creating chaos. Occasionally there would be thunderous explosions. This was the aftermath of the battle that caused the laws and the Grand Tao to collide with each other. However, in everyone's eyes, the entire world became a still scene. The background became ethereal until it became nothingness. In everyone's eyes, there was nothing else in this world. Only the middle-aged cultivator with white hair as white as frost, deep facial features, distant eyes and old robes remained. After half a minute, when passing self Zhang Tian raised his hand and grabbed the golden true dragon halberd that didn't seem to have any magic power fluctuations. Everyone finally pulled themselves out from the endless shock and gradually reacted. Elder Mo, after the battle ends, immediately express my respect to this Mr. Jiang on my behalf. Also publicly invite this Mr. Jiang to visit our sacred ground. A sacred ground leader directly took out a communication artifact and sent a message to an elder who was watching the battle. Yes, sacred leader. The elder's body shook and quickly flew towards passing self Zhang Tian. Chapter 1938. From today onwards, our Saint Origin continent will have a rising superstar that will suppress the world. Another big shot from the sacred ground was greatly shocked. He frowned and made the final decision. He also immediately ordered the disciples present to represent themselves and express goodwill to Zhang Tian. Many big shots had the same attitude. Zhang Tian's invincibility made them unable to ignore him. Zhang Tian's background was clean and he came from outside the river. He had no connections with the hidden sects and naturally had no inclination towards them. At this time, as long as any sect could rope in Zhang Tian, it would be equivalent to gaining a powerful helper, and they would even have the capital to reach the peak. Even the decimating abyss dragon, which burned its life essence and activated a supreme-grade sacred weapon, could not hurt him at all. Instead it was slapped to death by him. Defeated, Niu Ben's deity had already fled thousands of miles away. At this moment, looking at the man who stood proudly in the middle of the field, his long robes fluttering in the wind, his facial features well defined, his eyes filled with the vicissitudes of time, filled with a strange charm and unharmed. He was like a middle-aged scholar. However, he did not dare to escape because he knew that he was still locked onto by Zhang Tian's divine sense. Moreover, his speed was not even 1,000th of Zhang Tian's. Escaping meant death. Clenching his teeth, he flew to Zhang Tian and kowtowed, saying that he would surrender to Zhang Tian and be a loyal slave. Zhang Tian will naturally not kill him now, because he was still useful. Fellow Daoist Zhang, today's battle was truly marvelous. I admire you to the extreme. Slaying a demonic dragon with one hand, a nascent soul comparable to a saint, this old man admits defeat and is ashamed of his inferiority. Seeing Elder Gu Saintess Qingjue, and the elders of the major holy lands and holy lands, these big shots that she usually had to look up to had surrounded Zhang Tian so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Lin Dyer only felt that this was the biggest joke of her life. Mr. Zhang's body is invincible, his magic power is earth-shattering. The decimating abyss demonic dragon that can kill a saint can be called a saint. Yes, Saint Xiqing. Fellow Daoist Zhang is naturally worthy of this title. Such voices could be heard all around. No matter how young Zhang Tian looked, no matter where he came from, and no matter if he was a peak-stage nascent soul cultivator or a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, the fact that he had slain the abyss demonic dragon, which was as powerful as a void-returned saint, made him worthy of the title of saint. After all, one's cultivation realm was just an illusion. The most important thing was still combat power. He could still be called Saint Xiqing. Standing at the pinnacle of Saint Origin World, there were only a handful of people who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Sage Xiqing. Jiang Xiqing, a rogue cultivator from beyond the Milky Way. Lin Dyer, who was watching all this from a distance, was dumbfounded and could not believe her eyes. These were people from two completely different worlds, yet they were actually involved together. One of them was a widower from the remote and destitute Black Sun space zone, who was only in the nascent soul stage and had a child with him. At most, he was an itinerant cultivator from outside the galaxy who had a relatively fast cultivation speed. The other was a void-returned saint who stood at the pinnacle of Saint Origin World, looking down on all living beings and being on equal footing with the sect masters of divine sects and sacred grounds. But now, these two identities were miraculously combined, shocking and making people tremble at the same time. He's really defeated. He's dead. At this moment, many powerful figures of the demon race in the pantheon of demons had ugly expressions, unwilling to believe it. Their hearts were filled with sorrow as if the fox mourned the death of the rabbit. No one was willing to believe or accept it. A long time ago, the abyss demonic dragon had turned into a demon and devoured countless living beings, including the human race and the demon race. It was regarded as a mortal enemy by the demon race and the human race. However, ever since the abyss demonic dragon was controlled by the demon imprisoning Immortal jar, it was worshipped by them and became the divine beast, guarding the palace. In every battle, no matter what kind of peerless expert it met, even if it was a soul formation or void return cultivator, the abyss demonic dragon only needed to show a little bit of its claws to kill them. In their hearts, the abyss demonic dragon was almost invincible. It was enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the giants of the sacred grounds, or even surpass them. But now he was unable to harm Zhang Tian at all, even after burning his essence blood and activating his peerless divine weapon. Instead, he was killed with a raise of his hand. How is this possible? The abyss demonic dragon is an experienced half-sage and possesses the noble bloodline of the true dragon. He is extremely talented and has refined the laws of demonic nature. His strength has completely reached the void return stage. Why, he can't even defeat a nascent soul heavenly lord. A soul formation divine lord protector was so frightened that his body trembled and he could not even stand. At this moment, the upper echelons of the pantheon of demons had extremely ugly expressions. The pantheon of demons wanted to overthrow the Eastern royal family and establish a pantheon of demons where humans and demons were equal and where demons were the rulers. However, the abyss demonic dragon was almost their greatest trump card. Now he was defeated miserably and might even die. This meant that their painstaking plan was about to fall into a predicament and become a pipe dream. Our sect master came out of seclusion and watched the battle between you and the abyss demonic dragon. He is full of admiration for you. He wants the old man to tell him that he hopes that you can stay in our sect for a few days and talk through the night. A saint from a sacred ground spoke. His status was very respected and was similar to Elder Gu's. However, he was very passionate and respectful towards Zhang Tian and did not dare to show any arrogance. Fellow Daoist, Zhang's body is truly strong. You are not any weaker than divine powers, dharma arts, demonic nature and even supreme-grade sacred weapons with your body. I am truly impressed and would like to invite you to our sect to teach us the Tao of cultivating the body. A grand elder of the divine sect was full of praises for Zhang Tian and admired him from the bottom of his heart. Do you think I want to fight with my body? I have no choice. I'm very poor and don't have any suitable dharma treasures or Tao weapons. Zhang Tian shook his head helplessly. All the dharma treasures were with Zhang Tian's original body. He did not have a single one and his pockets were even cleaner than his face. The Grand Elder was very embarrassed. However, another big shot with a face full of smoke and dust and wearing a long robe with an iron furnace embroidered on the chest immediately brightened his eyes and said with a smile, "Saint, I am Feng Santong, an elder of the Windfire sect. Greetings, fellow Daoist. I would like to inform you that our sect is good at forging weapons and has 3 divine blacksmiths and more than 100 divine blacksmiths. Our craftsmanship is the best in the divine origin world. If you need any dharma treasures or Tao robes, you can come to our sect and take them." As soon as he said that, everyone looked at Feng Santong with envy. This Feng Santong really knows how to play along. This invitation is exactly what Jiang Xiqing wanted. Although our sect is not a blacksmithing sect, we do have some Tao weapons and sacred weapons. In order to win Xiqing over, we can give them away. It's just that we were too late and let him take the lead. In terms of blacksmithing, your standards may not even be comparable to my pinky finger. Zhang Tian said arrogantly and disinterestedly. Hearing that, Feng Santong was also embarrassed. He forced a smile and said, "So you are proficient in blacksmithing? That's great. Our sect has many blacksmithing materials and many heavenly treasures. You can take them and use them to forge dharma treasures according to your needs." Zhang Tian ignored him and looked at Fairy Qingjue calmly. He smiled coquettishly and said, "Thank you, Fairy, for lending me your sacred weapon during the battle. Although I did not accept it, I am still grateful. I would like to invite Fairy to have a drink and go on a scenic tour. I wonder what Fairy thinks about that." Chapter 1939. He is so impulsive. This is almost equivalent to saying, dual cultivation Tao. How impulsive. Presumably, Fairy Qingjue will be furious and leave in a huff. Lin Dyer couldn't believe it and then she thought secretly. Because in her impression, Fairy Qingjue was like a high and mighty goddess, awe-inspiring and inviolable. Everyone's face also revealed a somewhat ambiguous expression, and they smiled embarrassedly. However, to everyone's surprise, especially Lin Dyer, Fairy Qingjue smiled sweetly and said without hesitation, "Okay, then it will be my honor." Lin Dyer was in a predicament. Then, under the crowd's incredulous gazes, Zhang Tian and Fairy Qingjue left together, one after the other. Earth year 2022, November 25th. Xingyuan calendar 139,653 years. I, Zhang Tian, under the eyes of millions of people, killed 4 divine transformation realm experts of the pantheon of demons in the Eastern Gorge territory of the Eastern Empire, fought against the halberd with his bare hands, and slaughtered the ancient demon dragon. The news spread. The entire Saint Origin world was shocked. Since then, everyone in the world didn't know Jiang Xiqing. Almost at the same time, in the place where the Lin family's ancestor was in seclusion. As Zhang Tian's aura became ethereal, he looked handsome and otherworldly, like an immortal from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal realm. A dazzling rule of law that looked like divine light and divine splendor shot out. It was untraceable and at an incredible angle, beheaded a divine emperor of the demon clan who had an extremely strong physical body and was holding a trident made of 3 bones. This brutal battle had finally come to an end. With a fist mark on his chest and his Taoist robe torn and tattered in the battle, the Lin family's ancestor Lin Taqing slowly descended from the sky and landed on a mountain peak. He let out a long sigh and his eyes were slightly unfocused as he looked around, as if he had fallen into a dream. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, mountains crumbled, palaces collapsed, magic formations were damaged, and all kinds of restrictive spells were torn to pieces. The remaining natural laws were still clashing with each other, bursting with bolts of lightning and striking on the scorched earth. Billowing five-colored poisonous smoke broke through the bloody mist that lingered for a long time, making this place look like hell. The place of seclusion that he had painstakingly built for 100 years had been completely destroyed. Yes, everything that happened today was simply a nightmare for him. Just like every day for decades, he took pills, refined the source, and persevered in his attempt to break through to the half-saint realm. Suddenly, the place where he was cultivating in seclusion shook. It was forcibly broken open by a one-time explosive magical device such as the Green Thunder Talisman. Then 100 nascent soul cultivators and 4 soul formation Fey Lords appeared silently and attacked together. The Dharma treasures and Tao weapons tore through the void, bringing with them endless killing intent that seemed to cover the sky and cover the earth. He didn't hesitate to burn his life essence, and in an instant he became as thin as a bag of bones, barely withstanding the attack. The pain of burning his life essence was like a knife scraping his bones and like being fried in oil. It was simply worse than being dead. With this ruthless decisiveness and the sacrifice of his life essence, Lin Taching barely withstood this wave of attack. But compared to the attacks that followed, this wave of attack paled in comparison. There was the ice hornless dragon that spewed out the natural law of ice and snow that could freeze the earth, freeze the river, and cut off the vitality of all living things within 1,000 miles. There was the red serpent demon that spat out 5-colored poisonous smoke. One drop of it could tear apart a nascent soul cultivator's flesh and destroy a spirit embryo. One drop of it could corrode the natural law, pollute the territory, and affect the physical body and divine soul. There was also the thunder red toad that roared like thunder, shaking the divine soul and disturbing the mind. The species of the demon race were complex, and each kind of demon had different divine powers because of their different ancestral bloodlines. Just defending against one of these innate divine abilities would take the human cultivators a great deal of effort. What was even more frightening was that with so many different types of demon race attacking together, their attacks could be easily combined and varied. They also had different attack effects, making it impossible to guard against. Lin Taching used his trump card to resist most of the attacks, but he was still contaminated by the poisonous gas, which suppressed his power. He was also punched by a divine lord, which almost cracked his divine treasures. But the most terrifying ones were the foxes who were proficient in illusions. They could trigger the dark memories in the heart, which could lead to the invasion of the demons and the counterattack of the demons in the heart. When they launched their spiritual attacks, Lin Taching only felt that the suffocation, humiliation, anger, and frustration he had experienced in his life came one after another. He died, his family was besieged by the feudal lords, and the Eastern royal family looked on with indifference. His dream of the future 3 generations falling into depravity and the poverty of 10 generations was so real that it felt like a dream. All the past and illusions that touched the weakness of his heart were displayed in front of him one by one. They were like a dream but also real. Once he fell into them, he could not pull himself out. Even though Lin Taching had lived for thousands of years and was an experienced soul formation cultivator, he almost fell into them because of his anger and fear. Fortunately, he spent 50 years of the income of the entire fief of Jinyun Ho to buy a divine elixir of Kangsu from the Hall of Ancient Medicine. It was not only priceless, but its effect was not undeserved. After swallowing it, his mind finally regained a bit of clarity. He pulled himself out of the illusions and returned to reality, barely avoiding a wave of attacks that followed. Even so, his body and divine treasures were still pierced by countless Dharma treasures and arrows. He operated his cultivation method with difficulty and barely managed to recover. However, his cultivation level dropped rapidly from the late stage of the soul formation realm to the middle stage. But unexpectedly, the spiritual attacks of the demon clan evoked the tragic past, created unfortunate illusions, and triggered the inner demons. They did not stop. Instead, they surged even more fiercely, and each wave was stronger than the previous one. In a trance, he fell into all kinds of beautiful past and illusions. There were illusions where his deceased wife came back to life and they walked in the world hand in hand. They lived in the same room for 10 generations and their children surrounded them. There were also illusions where he returned to his childhood and reunited with his parents and siblings. They lived a peaceful and happy life. There were also illusions where he drew his sword and raised his eyebrows while surrounded by thousands of soldiers. He destroyed the rotten and weak Eastern royal family and established a new dynasty. He wanted to conquer the world and enjoy the beautiful dreams of being worshipped by the people. There were even illusions where he broke through the void returning and the Tao reunion level, ascended to the deity realm in the 9 heavens and became a perfected immortal. He lived a long life and lived as long as the world. Lin Taqing was one of the founders of the Eastern Enemy State. He was one of the founders of the country. He used to fight for the world and struggled to survive. Therefore, his ability to withstand pressure and negative emotions was very strong. He was extremely numb to suffering. However, he could not resist or control the happy illusions. He knew that he was trapped in the illusions, but he still couldn't get out. He urgently needed a divine elixir of Xianxia to break through the illusions and return to reality. However, he didn't have it anymore. Lin Taqing swayed back and forth between ecstasy, happiness, despair, and fear. He thought there was no way he could turn the situation around. I Zhang Tian was like an immortal descending from the 9 heavens. I stepped on the air and defeated the enemy with my fingers and palms, as if I were cutting melons and vegetables. I pushed forward like a giant stone crushing chicken eggs. Chapter 1940. No matter what kind of monster races, magic, poison, wind, or fire, none of them could do anything to me, Zhang Tian. No matter what kind of Dharma treasure, Dao artifact, or even saint weapon, none of them could harm a single hair on his body. Not even the terrifying soul attacks could do anything to him. In Lin Taqing's eyes, it was a one-sided massacre when Zhang Tian fought with the enemy. Dozens of demon cultivators who had strong corporeal bodies and were known for their strong defensive abilities were sliced in half at their waists. Even their spirit embryos and divine treasures were instantly destroyed. The nascent soul cultivators of the monster race with powerful divine powers and powerful bloodlines were crushed by his palm. Their bodies, armors, and divine souls were all destroyed. Even a few soul formation grand cultivators of the monster race couldn't withstand more than a few attacks. Often, after a short while, they would be beheaded by a casual wave of sword light. In the end, the leader of the divine lords of the monster race was infinitely close to the half-step void return stage and could even be called a half-saint. His power was on par with his own, and he activated his ancestral bloodline's innate abilities to escape at an unparalleled speed. A few peak-stage nascent soul cultivators of the Lin family who had come to support him were easily broken through. However, Zhang Tian only raised his hand and cast a supreme domain. The powerful divine master of the monster race was instantly frozen in the air. No matter how much he screamed, how much blood he burned, how much his essence chi boiled, and how much dharma laws surged, he was still like a fly trapped in amber. He couldn't move or struggle at all. They could only watch as Zhang Tian waved his finger and beheaded the demon king. Is he really the divine master of my family? Recalling the Daoist Zhang Tian, Lin Taqing had a vague feeling that he was like an immortal god who stood high above the 9 heavens. He was invulnerable, indestructible, and invincible. When Zhang Tian was recuperating Dongfang Ying's physique, achieving a balance between yin and yang, carrying yin and yang, the red and white yin and yang fish, transforming into a pillar of light that shot into the sky, the alarmed Lin Taqing had come out of seclusion, looked at Zhang Tian from afar and instructed Lin Hanqing. Mr. Zhang's divine powers and cultivation are unfathomable. He is a once-in-a-thousand-years genius. Hanqing, you must treat him with respect. Seeing him is like seeing an ancestral patriarch and treating him like a parent. Could be said that Lin Taqing had already seen how extraordinary Zhang Tian was back then. However, after the battle, Lin Taqing realized that he had seriously underestimated Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian was not a rare genius in the Eastern Empire. He was a powerful man who could overlook the entire Saint Origin world. He even suspected that Zhang Tian was the reincarnation of an immortal from the 9 heavens. After all, Zhang Tian was too young. According to the era of Saint Origin world, he was in his 20s, the same generation as Lin Yang and Lin Dai. How could there be such a person in this world? Lin Taqing looked at Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. His nose was tall and straight. His hair was black without any gray. His face was handsome and charming. His feather robe was spotless. In his temperament, there was the maturity and steadiness of a middle-aged man and the carefreeness of a young man. His eyes were emotionless, mature and cold as if they were eternally immovable. Lin Taqing's heart skipped a beat. He felt that Zhang Tian's temperament had changed. It was completely different from the last time he saw him. The feeling that Zhang Tian was the reincarnation of an immortal was even stronger. Previously, Zhang Tian gave him the feeling that he was surrounded by worldly affairs. He treated people with generosity and kindness. He was amiable just like an ordinary person. But now he felt that Zhang Tian was very far away from him. It was as if Zhang Tian was an immortal from the 9 heavens. Lin Takong dared not delay. He flew to Zhang Tian's side and bowed to him like a disciple. He said in fear and trepidation, "Thank you, Sage Xiqing, for saving the old man. The old man is so touched that he will never forget it." Of course, he could tell that Zhang Tian was a nascent soul stage cultivator. But that was not important. Zhang Tian was able to kill over 100 nascent soul stage cultivators and 4 soul formation stage grand cultivators of the demon race, including a grand cultivator at the peak of the soul formation stage who was infinitely close to a half-saint. That had already proved his strength. If he could not be called a saint of the void returning realm, how could he be called a saint of the void returning realm? You and I are destined to be together. This is how it should be. Zhang Tian's lips were thin and his black gem-like eyes were deep and indifferent. His handsomeness gave people a feeling of alienation. His face was expressionless as he accepted Lin Takong's bow. His sleeves were fluttering and his breath was ethereal. At this time, Zhang Tian's face suddenly changed. His eyes flashed with coldness. He said in a cold voice, "I, Zhang Tian, that bastard, dared to provoke Fairy Qingjue. What a frivolous and despicable man. If that's the case, wouldn't it be a disgrace to our names? I'll take out my sword and kill him." What he means is that he is just a clone of Zhang Xiqing. Beside him, Lin Takong, who had just stood up, was so shocked that his face changed drastically. He could not stand still and almost fell to the ground. "He is a part of me. He cannot be erased." Zhang Tian's true body transmitted his voice over, reverberating in the depths of Zhang Tian's mind. He also said helplessly, "This guy is purposely making things difficult for us. However, he did a good job. He killed the abyss demonic dragon Niu Benning and a few other divine lords of the demon race. It's a mixed blessing. Don't be angry anymore." "I, Zhang Tian, killed the abyss demonic dragon and Niu Benning." Zhang Tian lowered his head and murmured in disbelief. Then he waved his sleeves and said proudly, "Next time, leave the most dangerous mission to me." Zhang Tian's real body said, "I will call Zhang Tian back immediately. You join me too. With our current magic power, we won't be able to sustain our Dao for long. We have to merge with our original bodies." Zhang Tian nodded slightly and raised his hand to envelop Lin Takong. The clear and misty law of green would formed a healing talisman. Every light spot in the talisman was as bright as a star. It carried the aura of creation as it fell on Lin Takong's wound. In the next moment, Zhang Tian turned into a brilliant streak of light and streaked across the sky, heading into the distance. This isn't his only doppelganger. There is another one called Zhang Tian. He has already killed Niu Benning and the other divine lords of the demon race. He even killed the abyss demonic dragon. Lin Takong stared at the beam of light that Zhang Tian had turned into in shock. His heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down for a long time, as if he had seen a ghost. He was so shocked that he even forgot to thank Zhang Tian for healing his wound. He even forgot to send him off. How powerful will the real Zhang Tian be after the 3 of them merge? I'm afraid that no one in the entire Saint Origin world can stop him. What virtue has my Lin clan accumulated? What virtue has my Lin clan accumulated to receive the help and protection of such a peerless powerhouse? From now on, I have nothing to worry about. Lin Takong had mixed feelings when he thought of this. Shock, relief, and the ecstasy of surviving a disaster filled his heart. After a long time, he finally recovered from his shock, and he noticed to his shock that the sunken fist mark on his chest had already recovered. His broken bones had been reconnected, his muscles had grown, and even the remnant laws of the demon clan that lingered within his body had been shattered and obliterated before being expelled from his body. He only needed to consume some healing and nourishing medicinal pills to quickly return to his peak state. Chapter 1941. On a large river that looked like a jade ribbon, an exquisitely decorated pleasure boat was slowly moving. The surrounding mountain ranges were undulating, and the green hills were like the flowers in the distance. Nearby, there were flowers and trees, and the fragrance of orchids wafted through the air. It was a picturesque scene. This area was located in the southern part of the Duke of Eastern Gorge's territory. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, there were 2 high-grade spirit veins. After being strengthened by a formation, the spirit energy was even denser, refreshing and refreshing. This was the rented land of the Nine Mysteries sect in the Eastern Empire. It was not a cave residence for cultivation, but a palace garden where the disciples of the sect could rest and play. In an elegant hall on the pleasure boat, Fairy Qingjue was sitting on the railing. She could see the calm river outside the window. She was dressed in white and her features were picturesque. Her temperament was otherworldly. On the table in front of her there were spirit fruits, snacks and wine. Opposite her, Zhang Tian supported his chin with his hand and unceremoniously put the snacks into his mouth. He looked at Fairy Qingjue with infatuation. "Why is Saint Xiqing looking at me like that? Is there a flower on my face?" Fairy Qingjue blushed when she felt Zhang Tian's gaze on her. She lowered her head and asked like a delicate flower shining on water. "Oh my God, is this still our Fairy Qingjue?" The many maids standing respectfully at the side looked at each other in disbelief. Fairy Qingjue was powerful and respected. She was an overlord in the Saint Origin world. She was not inferior to men and she would never say that when she was with men. "Haha. Of course there is no flower on your face." Jiang Tian raised his cup and took a sip of the jade fire wine. He said with tender eyes, "But you are prettier than a flower." Is he flirting with her so directly? I wonder how the saintess will react. The maids were stunned again. They could not believe it. The men that Fairy Qingjue usually saw were either servile like Li Yichen, mature and prudent like Nan Gongyu who kept a distance, or enemies of life and death. When had she ever been teased by Jiang Tian like this before? Instantly, her maiden heart pounded wildly like a fawn running around in a frenzy. "Young master, you must be joking." Fairy Qingjue smiled faintly, her beautiful face blushing. Her beauty was unparalleled. "Young master?" The surrounding maidservants were stunned once more, unable to believe their eyes. "How is this a joke? Fairy, please understand. I'm doing this out of sincerity." At this moment, the voice of Jiang Tian's true body sounded in his mind. However, Jiang Tian was still calm and composed. After finishing the last scene, he revealed a sorrowful expression and said with a gloomy expression, "I fell in love at first sight when I saw you, and I fell in love when I saw you again. However, I know that I shouldn't reveal these feelings to you. Instead, I should hide them in the bottom of my heart and silently look up to you because I'm not worthy." Seeing Jiang Tian's sorrowful expression and the deep sorrow in his eyes, Fairy Qingjue actually felt a sense of sadness and sympathy. At the same time, he was also puzzled. This was because the impression that Jiang Tian gave her was that he was arrogant and unruly. Of course, with Jiang Tian's strength, he indeed had the qualifications to do so. She couldn't imagine that Jiang Tian would actually say something like, "I'm not worthy." In her confusion, Fairy Qingjue couldn't help but ask, "Young master, your bloodline is extraordinary, your talent is extraordinary, and your cultivation is heaven-defying. You are powerful and not inferior to me at all. May I know why you say this?" It's a long story. Jiang Tian only let out a deep sigh, feeling even more gloomy and vicissitudes of life. Could it be that young master is unduly humble and ashamed of his inferiority because he was born in the Black Sun star zone outside the central galaxy? Fairy Qingjue guessed and smiled with some understanding. "Young master, you don't have to be like this. Heroes don't care about their origins. You already have such strength, so who cares about your background?" "That's not it." Passing Jiang Tian covered his face with his hands and sighed. "I'm a widower and I have a daughter. How can I be worthy of you, Fairy? However, everyone loves beauty. Although I'm rude, it's out of my sincere admiration. I hope Fairy won't take it to heart." "So that's the case." Fairy Qingjue lowered her head and pondered for a while before saying, "This is nothing. Cultivators have long lifespans. Some cultivators who marry mortal women have wives who die early. When they find a suitable Dao companion and remarry, they don't just have children. They have many grandchildren. The marriage of cultivators is completely different from that of ordinary people." Passing Jiang Tian was overjoyed and his eyes lit up. He grabbed Fairy Qingjue's hand and said hoarsely, "Fairy, do you really think so? How can you be so reckless? You're really a lecher. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others? You're known as a saint. You're virtuous and talented and you're praised by the world." Fairy Qingjue was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She struggled a few times, but seeing that she couldn't break free, she just let him hold on to her. What's so good about being a saint? What's there to be afraid of when the world laughs at me and bears infamy? Passing Zhang Tian caressed that warm, jade-like hand and panted emotionally. If I can get close to you even if I die, it's worth it. Don't say such silly things. Fairy Qingjue's head drooped slightly, and her waterfall-like hair fell naturally, revealing a section of her snow-white neck. Her snow-white skin made one's imagination run wild. Her eyelids trembled slightly, and she was both angry and happy at the same time. How old is your daughter? What does she like to eat and play? After I return to the sect to report the situation of this battle to my father, I can go out and travel for a while. I can also meet this child. She was already starting to want to develop a relationship with Jiang Beibei. In this era she's only 4 or 5 years old. Passing Jiang Tian smiled and said, she likes to eat and play all kinds of strange things. She's a very simple child. 4 or 5 years old. It's easy to develop a relationship. Fairy Qingjue's heart skipped a beat, and the pressure on her decreased slightly. However, at this moment, passing Jiang Tian suddenly let go of her hand. He stood up and bowed deeply, saying apologetically, Sai, the Eastern Empire is about to fall into chaos. This concerns the safety of the Zhenyuan Marquis residence. I can't stay for long. I'll take my leave now. I hope Fairy can forgive me. Oh, you're leaving now? For some reason, Fairy Qingjue actually felt a little reluctant and stood up to send him off. She walked out of the hall with passing Jiang Tian and came to the bow of the ship. With a gentle smile, she said, if you need my help to quell the rebellion in the Eastern Empire, just say the word. The 9 Mysteries sect and I will do our best. What kind of bewitching potion did this person feed our holy maiden? When the ladies heard this, they were in disbelief. With the strength of the 9 Mysteries sect, it would not be difficult for them to crush any force in the Eastern Empire and even annihilate the Eastern Empire's royal family. However, one should know that the 9 Mysteries sect was high up in the sky and had always kept itself clean. It had never interfered in worldly disputes, especially not in the affairs of the imperial court. This was an iron rule set by the founder of the 9 Mysteries sect. Fairy Qingjue's attitude was simply unprecedented. Qingjue, you're so good to me. Passing Jiang Tian suddenly turned around and looked at Fairy Qingjue lovingly. Chapter 1942. Isn't this what I should do? Fairy Qingjue was very close to Jiang Tian, and she could feel a strong masculine aura. It was masculine and wild. It was completely different from the otherworldly aura of other cultivators. It was as if other male cultivators were tea and Jiang Tian was a cup of strong wine. He had the power to make people blush and their hearts beat faster. How can I accept such a great favor from a beauty? I can't repay it even if I die 100 times. Jiang Tian murmured as tears welled up in his eyes. Suddenly he wrapped his arms around Fairy Qingjue's slender waist and pulled her into his embrace, deeply kissing her panic-stricken cherry lips. Young master, you, Fairy Qingjue mumbled. She was still struggling at first, pounding her fists on Jiang Tian's shoulders. But gradually her fists landed on Jiang Tian's shoulders. She opened her palms and hugged his back as if she wanted Jiang Tian to kiss her deeper. Let the 9 Mysteries sect announce to the world that we will hold a grand wedding. After a short moment, I, Jiang Tian, let go of this woman and reluctantly bid her farewell. Moreover, he instructed. This matter is not a joke. We have to think about it at length. Fairy Qingjue was extremely embarrassed. Jiang Tian used the Kunpeng's speed and turned into a beam of light, converging with Jiang Tian's original body. The taste of the saintess is indeed not bad. How delightful. The corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile as he gloated. That's right. I'll leave you with a debt of gratitude. Let's see how you repay it. Perhaps the entire 9 Mysteries sect will become your enemy. Eastern Empire capital city, deep inside the palace. Emperor Eastern Lu had his hands behind his back and stared blankly at the 1,000 miles water mirror, which no longer transmitted any images. He remained motionless like a block of wood. Father, may I know why you summon me so late at night? A man walked over and bowed deeply. He looked to be in his late 20s with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. His cheeks were slightly sunken, his nose was high and his lips were thin. His temperament was gentle and he had an obvious air of nobility. His robe was black with a few spots of crimson, but the material itself was extraordinary. His hands were behind his back and there was a long sword at his waist. The scabbard was dark gold and there was a 5-clawed dragon on it. Crown Prince Dongfang Ding. His tone was normal and did not sound harsh, but he gave people a vague feeling that he was not as easy to get along with as he looked. He seemed approachable and gentle, but in fact he had a high and mighty attitude. It was just that he did not have to show it at all times. The battle at 100 Flowers Peak is over. What do you think? Eastern Lu seemed to have woken up from a dream. He turned his head and revealed a kind smile, seemingly calm. However, his slightly trembling sleeves still revealed his unstable and shocked state of mind. Reporting to father, in my opinion, Jiang Xiqing is a good sword. Dongfang Ding pondered and said, I'm just worried that Jiang Xiqing's meteoric rise to the Saint Realm is a sign of a great calamity. Why? Eastern Lu asked as if he was testing him. Dongfang Ding's noble air was tinged with a sense of carefreeness. His aura was much stronger than that of the second prince, Dongfang Li. He spoke freely and confidently. In my humble opinion, there are 3 major imbalances within the empire. First, there is an imbalance within the feudal vassals. Apart from Duke Nan, the 3 dukes and the Marquis of Purple Robes are the leaders of the feudal vassals. They have troops and strong financial resources, like a country within a country. Moreover, they ignore the royal family and wantonly annex other weaker feudal vassals. From this point of view, the strong rise of the Lin family loyal to the Marquis of Xianyuan will help the feudal vassals keep each other in check and stabilize the country. Eastern Lu nodded and did not speak, his face revealing a look of approval. Dongfang Ding's train of thought was clear and unhurried, as if he had already considered this question thoroughly. He continued unhurriedly. Second, there is an imbalance between the feudal vassals and the royal family. Nowadays, the feudal vassals are powerful and ignore the royal family. They do not accept tributes and do not listen to orders. The royal family is weak. Whether it is financial strength, military strength, or even top-notch cultivators who raise offerings, they are already slightly inferior when compared to the feudal vassals. If Jiang Xiqing becomes a part of the feudal vassals' power, to my eastern royal family she is mortal enemy. Dongfang Ding's gaze was sharp as he looked directly at the Emperor Eastern Lu and said almost word by word. Continue. Eastern Lu's eyes flashed with a sharp cold light as he said in a low voice. Third, there is an imbalance between the secular world and the hidden sections. The royal family of the secular world occupies the majestic royal capital and controls the divine array. Their orders are like thunder. Within the 4 fiefs, the feudal vassals tremble, the aristocratic families are terrified, and the common people are all subservient to the emperor's orders. However, the hidden sects are high and mighty. They consider themselves to be immortals and Buddhas. They absorb faith, recruit talents, and possess sacred weapons and scriptures. They can destroy the royal family with a snap of their fingers. Dongfang Ding said in a low voice, if Jiang Xiqing joins the sects, or even directly establishes a sect in our territory, our eastern family. He stopped speaking as if there was no need to continue. However, Eastern Lu also had a look of understanding and did not ask further. Instead, he quickly changed the topic and said in a low voice, Lin Hanqing has already sent news. The many operations against the Marquis of Xianyuan's Lin family this time are the joint efforts of the Marquis of Purple Robes and the Pantheon of Demons. My son, what do you think of the next operation? Is the evidence conclusive? Dongfang Ding asked. Conclusive. The Lin family has a consecrator who is a spy planted by the Marquis of Purple Robes. He has already been controlled. Moreover, the deity of Divine Lord Nyoben has been captured by Jiang Xiqing. Basically, the Marquis of Purple Robes and all the arrangements behind him are already clear as day. Eastern Lu said in a low voice. I believe that speed is the most important thing in war. Immediately eliminate the Marquis of Purple Robes and his feudal vassals in the south, and intimidate the world. Dongfang Ding did not hesitate. Then his eyes flashed and he said in a low voice, put Jiang Xiqing in an important position, appoint her as the imperial advisor and hold a grand ceremony. This good killing sword, at least for this period of time, must be firmly in the hands of the Eastern royal family, and suppress the aristocratic families that have disloyal intentions. That makes sense. However, to eliminate the Marquis of Purple Robes, are you going or? Eastern Lu asked. Everything is for the benefit of the country. I dare not speak rashly. Please make the decision, father. Dongfeng Ding bowed deeply. You and Dongfeng Li will act together. Lead the many cultivators of the royal family and rush to the Marquis of Purple Robes overnight to kill him. Eastern Lu said in a cold voice. Blackstone Forest. Corpses were everywhere, the smell of blood filled the sky, broken Dharma treasures floated in the air, and fragments of flying boats and cloud towers were piled up on the ground. Between heaven and earth, the waves of Dharma power were strong, and there were even remnants of Dharma laws that clashed wildly, exploding into terrifying bolts of lightning. This place was located in the middle of the fief of the southern Gongfangs and the Lin family of the Jinyun Marquis. A fortress had been set up and it was protected by a divine array. Under the pursuit of the three powerful demons, Fang Guoyu took Jiang Beibei and many members of the Lin family and ran for tens of thousands of miles. The Cloud Tower flying boat had run out of energy and could only hide in the fortress, and the guards here had already resisted the pursuit and attacks of the demons, waiting for reinforcements to arrive. Hold on. Miss Fang, we can't hold on any longer. We must hold on. We've already sent a message to the southern Gongfangs. Reinforcements will be here soon. Fang Guoyu, who was covered in blood and shattered armor, led Guochuandong and the other cultivators to hide behind the protective barriers and bunkers of the formations. They constantly unleashed their magical treasures and unleashed streaks of light with great difficulty. The streaks of light shot through the air and struck the birds that were covered in shining metallic luster and steel-like scales. Their wings blotted out the sky, and their claws were sharp enough to tear through boulders. These giant birds were called stone-cracking birds, and they were an ancient species between beasts and birds. They were as strong as dragons and had thick skin, but they were extremely fast and their claws were sharp enough to tear apart Dharma laws. They spat out thunderbolts and controlled wind and fire. An adult stone-cracking bird was comparable to a human nascent soul heavenly lord without cultivating, and many of them had already reached the nascent soul level. And there were more than 10,000 stone-cracking birds circling around the black stone forest. Looking at Jiang Beibei, who was hiding in Mrs. Fang's arms and trembling with fear and despair appeared on Fang Guoyu's face. She sighed in her heart. Are we going to die here today? Chapter 1943. Those giant birds were called stone-cracking birds. They were a mutant species between beasts and birds. They were as strong as dragons and had thick skin. However, their wings could break the laws of dimensions and they could fly extremely fast. Their claws were sharp enough to tear apart Dharma treasures. They could spit out thunderbolts and control wind and fire. An adult stone-cracking bird was as powerful as a nascent soul heavenly lord without cultivating. Besides, many of them had already reached the nascent soul level. And in the area of the black stone forest, there were thousands or even tens of thousands of stone splitters circling above. A hint of despair appeared on Fang Guoyu's face as she looked at Jiang Beibei, who was hiding in Madame Fang's arms and trembling with fear. She sighed in her heart. Are we going to die here today? Even though they could hold on for a while with the fortress and the divine array, and the Dharma treasures released by Fang Guoyu and the others would kill some of the stone-cracking birds nearby. Things went on for a long time. The Dharma powers of both the array and the cultivators would run out eventually. By then, everyone would probably die in the hands of the wolves. Yes, everyone would die. On the outside, there were 3 demon clan soul formation grand cultivators holding the line. They stood proudly high in the sky, their demonic vertical pupils shining with cold light. They looked down at the fortress below without any emotion. It was as if Fang Guoyu and the others were still fighting back bravely. It was as if they were just little white rabbits struggling futilely under the claws of a ferocious tiger. Boom! The divine formation trembled and a beam of light shot out. It was sharp and piercing and it crushed an adult stone splitter bird into pieces. Guochuandong, who was controlling the divine array, had his arms torn open from the impact. He gritted his teeth and shouted, Miss Fang, we can't hold on any longer. There are only 3 array formation crystals left. We can only hold on for half an incense stick's time. The leader of the cultivators guarding the fortress also said anxiously, Miss Fang, our talismans are already shining and our Dharma treasures are about to run out of Dharma treasures. But there are countless stone-cracking birds. If the Golden Sand City can't help, we won't make it. We've already sent messages to the Golden Sand City with our immortal will when we left the forest. But even with my father's fastest speed and the best Dharma treasures of the Golden Sand City, It'll still take half a day to get here. Fang Goyu said with a trembling voice. What? Everyone's eyes were filled with despair. The imperial court is as deep as the sea, and the hearts of men are as sharp as swords. The aristocratic families of the feudal lords had to guard against the wrath of the emperor. They had to guard against the internal strife of their peers, plundering and running. Below them they had to pacify the common people and suppress the bandits and rogues. Putting aside the fact that we're not allowed to have a single day of rest, it's better to walk on the edge of a blade, trembling with fear. If we're not careful, our family will be destroyed. Mrs. Fang's heart was filled with sorrow. Tears flowed out of her eyes. She hugged Jiang Beibei tightly and asked softly, Beibei, are you afraid? I'm not afraid. You don't worry. My dad will definitely come and save us. Jiang Beibei seemed to be full of confidence in Jiang Tian. Everyone just laughed, treating it as a child's naive words. They all knew that Jiang Tian and Lin Hanqing had already arrived at the Purple Marquee residence as guests. It would take them at least 3 days to arrive here. By the time he arrived, everyone had already turned into dust. Miss Fang, the situation is urgent. Let's abandon the fortress, protect Miss Fang and Mrs. Lin with all the magical equipment we have, and break out of the siege with Jiang Beibei. Guochuandong suddenly said in a deep voice. Endless determination appeared on his face. He had met Jiang Tian on planet Juma, but he didn't know the inside story. He had always regarded Jiang Tian as his fellow countryman. He admired Jiang Tian and was a bit close to him. In his opinion, Jiang Tian and Jiang Beibei were all from the Black Sun Galaxy. They were also the hope of the Black Sun Galaxy shining in the universe one day. So he would protect Jiang Beibei even if he had to die. Yes. All the soldiers of the Stone Forest Fortress are willing to risk their lives to escort Miss Fang and Mrs. Lin out of the siege. Yes. The general of the fortress also said generously. He was fearless in the face of death. Even if we have to die. The cultivators of the other fortresses, even if they were only golden core cultivators, gritted their teeth and shouted. Their blood was boiling and endless determination flashed in their eyes. It was evident that Nan and Gongfang Jinlong were indeed good at commanding soldiers. Well, a hint of struggle flashed in Fang Goyu's eyes. There was a flying ship in the fortress at the moment. It was a military Dharma artifact used to send messages. It was so fast that it could get rid of the soul formation cultivators. However, the flying ship was extremely light and delicate. Its space was limited and it could only accommodate 2 people. But it would be impossible to take the other families and cultivators of the Lin mansion away. Fine. Let's delay it a bit longer. If it doesn't work, this is the only way. Fang Goyu heaved a sigh. There was dead silence. Suddenly, a young man in a luxurious outfit stepped forward and pointed at Jiang Beibei with bloodshot eyes. Why do you have to take this girl away? She's not the descendant of the Lin family. She's just the daughter of an alien elder. He pushed out the boy in his arms and looked at Madame Lin pleadingly. He sobbed, Sister, I beg you, take the child away. He's the only descendant of our family. When Madame Lin heard this, tears welled up in her beautiful eyes and the rims of her eyes turned red. The attack of the demons this time affected a lot of people. Apart from the 100-Flower Peak, the Lin mansion, and where the ancestral patriarch was in seclusion, Mrs. Lin's family was also attacked by demons. However, they were not so lucky. They had already been brazenly exterminated. The young man in luxurious clothes was Mrs. Lin's brother. He had brought his son to the Jinyuan Marquee residence as a guest and was lucky enough to escape. But if he stayed here and died in the hands of the stone-cracking birds and the demons, it would mean that the Lin family had no more descendants. Guochuandong was speechless when he heard that. Just as Mrs. Lin's brother said, no matter how much Lin Hanqing valued Jiang Tian was just an alien elder. There was a difference between master and servant, and there was an order of seniority. It was understandable that Madame Lin wanted to protect her family. But unexpectedly, Madame Lin nodded in the next moment and took Fang Goyu's hand, saying, All right. I'm not leaving. You can take the 2 children with you. The breaking sky flying boat will be lighter. There's a higher chance of escaping. Sister. Madam. For a moment, everyone cried out in surprise. Their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. Guochuandong didn't think that Mrs. Lin would value Jiang Tian so much. Just as they were in a stalemate, Jiang Beibei suddenly raised her hand and pointed outside the fortress. Everyone raised their heads and saw a dazzling golden light coming from afar at lightning speed, accompanied by the sound of breaking through the air. The dazzling light paused and revealed a young man in long robes. His features were handsome and his eyes were deep and weathered. He had the charm of time. It was Zhang Tian. "It's Mr. Jiang." Everyone cheered in joy. Chapter 1944. Zhang Tian's face was calm without any ripples. Without saying a word, he raised his hand and pushed. A gust of destructive power swept out. Boundless laws of nature surged out like raging waves, possessing an unstoppable force, instantly enveloping an area with a radius of 50 kilometers. In this area, countless stone splitter birds were like paper. They were crushed by the power of the laws and some of them were even turned into smoke or ashes. What's going on? Didn't the message say that Jiang Xiqing had been led to the 100 Flowers Peak? It would take at least a few days for her to arrive. But he's here now. Run. This man's strength is incredible. I heard that even Sir God Nioben was killed. Even the abyssal demon dragon was beheaded by him. The Sir Gods of the monster clans suddenly changed their expressions and exclaimed in unison. They looked at each other and then without saying a word, they flew into the distance in streaks of light. The remaining stone-cracking birds saw that their masters were running away and they disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jiang Tian shook his sleeves and entered the fortress. Jiang Beibei jumped into Jiang Tian's arms and cried, "Dad, you're here. You scared me to death." She was very nervous because of the crisis. But after all, the people around her were not her family. Even though she was extremely frightened, she kept calm and did not cause any trouble for them. At that moment she could only let go in front of her father. What's there to be afraid of? As long as I'm here, everything will be fine. Jiang Tian stroked his daughter's head and put her on the ground. She walked to Mrs. Lin and saluted. "Madam, fortunately I didn't let you down. Lin Dyer has been saved and the ancestor is safe. The Marquis and the young Marquis are not hurt at all." "Mr. Jiang, how did you do it?" Mrs. Lin's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mr. Jiang, you're indeed Mr. Jiang." Fang Goyu also looked at Jiang Tian with eyes full of adoration. "Mr. Jiang is the same as me. We're both from the Black Sun Star Zone. We took the same empty carriage from the Zhuma Star to the Gentle Wind Courier Station in the Saint Origin world. Their relationship is ironclad." Guchuandong was even more proud. He was so excited that the fat on his body was trembling. He said proudly to a fortress guard battle general beside him. The general immediately looked at Guchuandong in a new light. Everyone was filled with admiration for Jiang Tian. After all, the demons attacked at the same time at the 100 Flowers Peak, the Lin Mansion, and the ancestor Lin Takong's place of seclusion. On the other hand, Lin Hanqing was ambushed on his way to the rescue. Among them were many semi-god realm and even half-saint mighty figures. For Jiang Tian this was simply an impossible task, but Jiang Tian actually did it. Soon Lin Hanqing also rushed over. "When you meet someone you will naturally feel happy. Husband, my family has been trampled by the demon clan. Not even a chicken or dog was spared." However, Madame Lin could not help but complain tearfully. "What?" Lin Hanqing couldn't believe it. Then he said coldly, "Don't worry. I will avenge you and make Purple Marquis and the Myriad Demons Palace pay the price in blood." Blood for blood. Everyone in the Lin family was filled with grief and indignation. They raised their arms and shouted, their killing intent like a dragon. This time the Lin family suffered heavy losses. There were countless casualties in Jinyuan Ho's territory. At this moment Lin Hanqing's communication device rang. He picked it up and looked at it. His expression became serious and he said in a deep voice, "Mr. Jiang, the array in the palace has sent a message. An imperial edict has arrived, asking the Lin family to gather the soldiers and join forces with Count Nan He to follow Crown Prince Dongfang Ding and Second Prince Dongfang Li to besiege Purple Marquis." That's how it should be. Jiang Tian's expression was calm and unruffled. He was not surprised at all. Zhang Linfeng was captured alive. Purple Marquis's crime of assassinating Lin Hanqing was confirmed. This alone was enough to sentence Zishan Ho to death. Emperor Nioben's deity was controlled by Jiang Tian. He also clearly knew about the cooperation between the Myriad Demons Palace and Purple Marquis. Together with this, Purple Marquis's crime was unforgivable, and his entire family should be executed. Lin Hanqing had already reported these two pieces of information to Eastern Lu immediately. Eastern Lu had long wanted to kill Purple Marquis, so how could he not take action? Most importantly, with the clue of Emperor Niuben's deity, he had already found out that the Myriad Demon's Palace Master Han Guang was the late Emperor Dongfang. Dongfang had implemented the county system in the past, which weakened the power of the feudal lords. This would instantly divide Purple Marquis's camp and make the feudal lords hate him to the core. If they did not take action now, when would they? However, Lin Yong, the eldest princess, and the little princess are still in the eldest princess's palace, so we have to hold back. Lin Hanqing sighed, feeling nervous. With the eldest princess's strength and the protective array of the palace, even if Purple Marquis were to take action, she should be able to resist for a while. Jiang Tian looked calm and said leisurely, "Besides, until now the eldest princess and the others have not sent a message. This also means that at least they are safe for now. Purple Marquis did not take action against them." "Why is that?" Lin Hanqing was puzzled and said, "If I were Purple Marquis, if I knew that my assassination and collaboration with the demon race had been exposed, I would definitely attack the eldest princess's palace and take her down, so that the Eastern royal family would hold back and I would also have an advantageous position. The point is he doesn't know." Jiang Tian suddenly smiled mockingly. "This." Lin Hanqing's puzzlement grew even stronger. "It's very simple. The Myriad Demon's Palace has already abandoned him." Jiang Tian said leisurely, "Now the Myriad Demon's Palace's plan to use Purple Marquis to instigate internal strife in the Empire has already failed. Purple Marquis is no longer of value to the Myriad Demon's Palace. The Myriad Demon's Palace will not sacrifice anything for him. Besides, the Myriad Demon's Palace can't even take care of themselves. Right now they are probably frantically reinforcing their territory waiting for my attack." "I see." Lin Hanqing seemed to understand. "In addition, Eastern Lu has issued a secret edict to confer you the title of Imperial Preceptor, second only to one and above all. Congratulations, Mr. Jiang. From now on, I can only call you Imperial Preceptor Xiqing." Lin Hanqing bowed respectfully, his emotions complicated. Strictly speaking, from today onwards, Jiang Tian could no longer be considered a guest of the Lin family of the Marquis of Xianyun. The imperial family was supreme. How could there be a reason for a vassal or official to hire an imperial preceptor as a guest? The so-called secret edict was the opposite of an open one. It was a secret edict that only the person involved and the emperor knew. This was also very easy to understand because the strength that Jiang Tian had displayed was too strong. Even many divine sects and sacred grounds revered him, and sect leaders wanted to befriend him. Eastern Lu was also uncertain about Jiang Tian's attitude. Would he care about this so-called position of imperial preceptor? "There's no need to be polite between you and me." Jiang Tian chuckled. Eastern Lu is naturally suspicious, and has already begun to fear the Lin family of the Marquis of Xianyun. Has he weakened? As this thought flashed through Jiang Tian's mind. Boom! Waves of thunderclaps resounded from the horizon as numerous flying boats, cloud towers and chariots galloped over. Lightning coiled around them while wind, lightning, earth and fire sprayed out. Numerous chariots and flying boats were innumerable, and they formed a continuous expanse that was like a cloud that hung down from the sky. It was a magnificent sight. There were at least 100,000 cultivator soldiers and generals in sharp armor, and they were arranged in a battle formation. Their swords and spears were as bright as snow, and their murderous aura shook the sky. Every one of them had a golden core cultivation and it made one's heart palpitate. At the forefront of the battle formation, a large flag fluttered in the wind, and two large words were written on it, Nan He. A man in golden armor and a red robe was majestic. His skin was bronze and his facial features were chiseled. His long eyebrows slanted to his temples, making him look extremely valiant. A vast aura of the peak soul formation stage, close to that of a half-step void return, blotted out the sky and caused the earth to tremble. Duke Nan He Fong Jinlong, the city lord of Golden Sand City, greets Imperial Preceptor Xiqing. I wish Imperial Preceptor Xiqing a long and boundless life. However, when facing Jiang Tian, he did not have the slightest arrogance. He cupped his fists and bowed deeply, showing the highest respect. Fong Jinlong is indeed the Empire's #1 expert. Seeing Fong Jinlong, a strange look flashed across Jiang Tian's face, and he was deeply moved. In his previous life, when he was just thrown to the divine origin world by his master, he was only a Qi refinement and foundation establishment cultivator. When he met a giant of the empire like Feng Jinlong, he would probably have to bow down and kowtow 3 times and 9 times. But now the wheel of fate was turning again and everything was different. And everyone realized that a great counterattack was about to begin. Chapter 1945. 3 days later in Jianghan City. 10 of the 23 lords in the south have arrived, a total of 300,000 soldiers. There are still a few more on the way. 3 days later, at least 500,000 soldiers will gather. Let's see how they'll take back the 13 cities by then. Under the setting sun, the sky was dyed red like blood. On top of the majestic city wall, the purple marquis stood with his hands behind his back. His body was like a spear, sharp and sharp. His eyes scanned the 13 cities outside the city, and a ferocious look appeared on his face. Take back the 13 cities? We lost them to Lin Hanqing in the first place. Lin Hanqing is dead. Who dares to take the 13 cities? Marquis Xianxia snorted in disdain. Next to him, the 10 lords who had arrived with their troops stood quietly with solemn and respectful faces, waiting for the order of the top marquis of the southern border. Marquis Purple Robe and the grand cultivators of the monster race had launched a thunderous attack and defeated the arrogant Marquis Xingyuan's family. Even the lords in the south who had doubts about him before were now as quiet as cicadas in winter. Marquis, I have a feeling that the situation is not good. Among the crowd, only Lord Wang of the Medicine Fragrant Tower said. Rumor has it that 3 days ago, there was a dragon roar on 100 Flower Peak and a 100-mile beam of light shot to the sky. There was an earth-shattering explosion on Zhuang Peak as if soul formation grand cultivators were fighting. There were laws in the black stone forest, countless bodies of stone-cracking birds and the ancestral patriarch of the Lin family. I'm thinking, is there a problem with the Pantheon of Monsters operation? The battles on 100 Flower Peak, Zhuang Peak, Black Stone Forest and the ancestral patriarch of the Lin family had caused a huge commotion, but the real inside story was strictly guarded by the royal family. The only ones who knew the inside story were the giants of the divine sects and sacred grounds who were involved in the observation. However, the Medicine Fragrant Tower was also one of the top 20 sects in the divine origin continent. Its subsidiary companies were spread all over the major cities and were well informed. Lord Wang had vaguely heard some news. Didn't they say that a meteor fell on 100 Flower Peak and caused an anomaly? Marquis Xianxia was talking about the news spread by the royal family to confuse people and make Marquis Purple Robe. Taking advantage of these few days, the imperial army's troops and horses were rapidly mobilized. They secretly traveled hundreds of thousands of li and gathered at the southern border. They approached the Red Cliff Basin and besieged the Purple Marquis territory. Sir God Nyoben sent a message saying that they did succeed. They captured Lin Dai, and killed Jiang Xiqing. Hearing Landlord Wang's question, displeasure flashed across Purple Marquis's face. Just as they were about to raise the flag of rebellion and defeat the Eastern Imperial family, their morale could be used. Landlord Wang's words were boosting the prestige of others while diminishing his own spirit. Naturally, he was not pleased to hear it. However, Landlord Wang's support was also indispensable and extremely important to Purple Marquis. Therefore, he suppressed his displeasure and smiled confidently. Moreover, Zhang Linfeng also used a communication magical tool to talk to me. Lin Hanqing and his son are indeed dead. They were killed by Sir God Qiling with one palm. That's really worth celebrating. When Landlord Wang heard that, he was hesitant. He muttered to himself for a while and he suddenly cupped his hands and asked, "Can we talk to Sir God Qiling? This way we can be more assured." Landlord Wang, Sir God Qiling is a guardian of the Myriad Monsters Palace. His strength is close to that of a Void Return Realm half-sage. He is like a divine dragon in the sky. How can I talk to him whenever I want to? Purple Marquis was getting impatient. These words sounded nice, but Landlord Wang understood the meaning behind them. It did not mean that Purple Marquis was not qualified to talk to Qiling anytime, but that Landlord Wang was not qualified. At that moment Landlord Wang was annoyed. The Fragrant Medicine Tower was based on the trading of elixirs and Dharma treasures. It was known for its wealth. However, in terms of cultivation it was mediocre. Landlord Wang was indeed not as powerful as Qiling. However, Landlord Wang was also a sect master. As the saying goes, One would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. Landlord Wang thought highly of himself, and he suddenly felt that Purple Marquis was being too disrespectful to him. Moreover, Purple Marquis and the Myriad Monsters Palace were cooperating too deeply. It could even be said that Purple Marquis was just a puppet of the Myriad Monsters Palace. If Purple Marquis could overthrow the Eastern Imperial family and ascend the throne, the sect that would gain the most benefits would be the Myriad Monsters Palace. The fragrant medicine tower would fall behind. Purple Marquis also noticed Landlord Wang's subtle mood and smiled apologetically. Landlord Wang, please don't blame me. I was too impatient. Zhang Linfeng is a spy that I have nurtured for many years. Moreover, I have saved his life. He will definitely not betray me. Landlord Wang can rest assured. When the armies of the dukes gather, we will directly attack the imperial capital. At that moment, Landlord Wang's communication device rang. Landlord Wang cupped his hands and Purple Marquis signaled for him to deal with it. Landlord Wang went outside to take a look and immediately broke out in cold sweat. This was the news he received as a guest at the Eastern Canyon Duke's mansion. 3 days ago at the 100 Flowers Peak, Jiang Xiqing killed Niu Ben and 3 other demon clan divine lords and killed the abyssal demon dragon. This disciple specialized in refining elixirs for the Eastern Canyon Duke and his family. This news was also heard from him when he was treating the Eastern Canyon Duke's injuries. Naturally, it was not fake. Landlord Wang put away the communication Dharma artifact and felt his legs go soft. He couldn't even stand properly. This was because he had indeed heard the cry of a true dragon. It was just that he had become famous relatively late, and his strength was not comparable to those living fossils. He was not like them who had immediately determined that it was the abyssal demon dragon. However, he was able to determine that it was the dragon cry. At that moment he was terrified. It turned out that Sir God Niu Ben really fought with Jiang Xiqing and was killed. However, why was Sir God Niu Ben still able to send a message to Purple Marquis? There was only one reason, which was that his god had not been destroyed and he had been completely subdued by Jiang Xiqing. Moreover, Zhang Linfeng must have betrayed Purple Marquis. Because Zhang Linfeng and the Myriad Monsters Palace were communicating with each other. He naturally knew that Sir God Niu Ben had failed. However, why did he not send a message to Purple Marquis so that he could be on guard? Could only be that he was controlled by someone. Moreover, Sir God Qiling had failed and was even killed. This was also the reason why Sir God Qiling did not send a message personally. It seems that I have underestimated Jiang Xiqing's power. She could even kill the ancient demon dragon. I am afraid her power is close to that of a void return saint. However, rumor has it that her cultivation is only at the nascent soul realm. This is too heaven-defying. There is one more thing. If she is so powerful, why does she need to join the mansion of Zhenyun Marquis as a foreign dignitary? Wouldn't it be better for her to be an elder in the Holy Land God sect? Why does she need to fight for her life in the mortal world? Landlord Wang was shocked and puzzled at the same time. However, there was one thing. He was extremely sure. No matter what, Purple Marquis is doomed this time. After Landlord Wang looked at the communication device, he stood there silently and pondered. Purple Marquis immediately asked, "Landlord Wang, what's the matter?" Chapter 1946. Landlord Wang revealed an awkward but polite smile as he shook his head and said, "Alas, just now, a few of the incompetent managers of my subordinate companies sent me a message saying that time is of the essence. Although everyone has tried their best, we still haven't gathered enough healing pills for the army. We're still missing 50,000. Truly infuriating. To be able to gather so many pills in just 3 days is already commendable. If there comes a day when this marquis is able to ascend to the throne, I will definitely not forget your assistance today. The entire empire will support Fragrant Medicine Pavilion." Marquis Purple Robe was all smiles. Before the army moves, the provisions must move first. A lack of healing pills will slow down Lord Marquis's movements. This subordinate would like to return to Fragrant Medicine Pavilion and supervise them in preparing the pills and healing materials. What does Lord Marquis think? Landlord Wang smiled. Marquis Purple Robe waved his hand and smiled. Then I'll have to trouble Landlord Wang. Landlord Wang shouldn't be overly critical. We'll use battle to nurture battle. When the armies of the 23 marquises have gathered, we'll set out and conquer Zhenyun Marquis's territory. He has the spirit vein of Tiger Toad Ridge and many spirit herbs. There's no need for us to worry. This subordinate understands. Landlord Wang deeply bowed, then clasped his hands at the Marquis of Xianxia and the other marquises before silently withdrawing. Marquis Purple Robe was already commanding the troops. It was just that a moment later, a family general flew over and reported with a bow, reporting to Lord Marquis Manor Lord Wang wants to take away all of the fragrant medicine halls transport flying ships. This subordinate feels that it is inappropriate and requests for Lord Marquis to make a decision. What's so strange about this? Marquis Purple Robe was currently discussing the route of the army with several other marquises and did not take this matter to heart. He still needs to purchase large quantities of healing pills to transport over, so he naturally has to take away the airships. Otherwise, their transport forces would be far from enough. The general appeared suspicious. But what's strange is that he also wants to take away many of the pills. Some of them have already entered the treasury. What? This time, everyone felt very strange. Even the somewhat brainless Marquis of Xianxia was startled. Why did he take them away? Landlord Wang, he said that these pills were of too low grade and needed to be melted down. This subordinate wanted to stop him at the time, but he said that the matter was urgent and that he was furious. Marquis Purple Robe's expression changed and he felt a chill down his spine. Hurry and invite Landlord Wang's return. After saying that, he added, regardless of life or death. At this time, a nascent soul cultivator flew over and said anxiously, reporting to the Marquis, Landlord Wang injured dozens of cultivators guarding the warehouse and the city. He took many medicinal pills and left Jianghan City on a flying boat. As for where he went, he has already used an artifact to mask his aura. We can't track him. What? Marquis Purple Marquis level Marquis the purple variety? If Purple Marquis wanted to overthrow the Eastern Imperial family and replace them, other than the support of the Myriad Demons Palace, the most important factor was the support of the Fragrant Medicine House. Marquis to the Marquis? But this was an immeasurable blow to the morale of the vassals. At this moment, his vast consciousness had already sensed the violent changes in the expressions of the vassals, their rapid heartbeats, and their indistinct consciousness transmissions. Landlord Wang's businesses can be found all over the empire and even the continent. You are well informed. Could it be that he obtained some information that I didn't know about? Is it true that something went wrong with the Pantheon of Demons operation as he said just now? Purple Marquis's heart thumped as he forced himself to calm down. But after thinking about it, he still rejected this possibility. Because the logic was very simple. The battles at the 100 Flowers Peak, the Zhuowang Peak, the Black Stone Forest, and the place where Lin Takong was in seclusion were taking place. He had paid close attention to it and even investigated it. Judging from the destructive power of those 4 battles, all of them were at the level of Return to Void Stage Saints. Moreover, it happened almost at the same time. Lin Hanqing and even the entire empire did not have so many saints. Therefore Lin Hanqing must have died on Zhuowang Peak. The battle at the 100 Flowers Peak seems to have involved the 9 Mysteries sect. However, Sir God Nyoben had said that Jiang Xiqing had been killed. Of course it's not fake. The Purple Marquis quickly regained his confidence. He looked at the Southern Marquis and smiled. There's more. If the Pantheon of Demons operation failed, then the eldest princess will be the first to know the news. Why would she stay here? She will definitely run away as soon as possible. Don't worry everyone. Jiang Xiqing is dead, the Lin Mansion is destroyed and the Jinyun Marquis' territory is mine. The Eastern Empire also belongs to me and all of you. Marquis, you always take every possibility into account. You plan before you act. When you act, you are as immovable as a mountain, but when you act, you are as swift as a flame. Jiang Xiqing will definitely die. Lin Hanqing will also die. Haha. The general trend is set. The Southern Marquis laughed complacently. It's a pity that I can't personally kill Jiang Xiqing, a lowly rogue cultivator from outside the river, to avenge my son. When I meet up with Sir God Nyoben later, I will definitely take Jiang Xiqing's body and whip it to vent my anger. The Marquis of Xianxia was still indignant. Nyoben said that I'm dead, so you think I'm dead? Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from the top of the city gate tower. Everyone's laughter stopped abruptly as they looked toward the source of the voice. They saw a middle-aged scholarly man in a green robe, with chiseled facial features and deep eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Jiang Xiqing, you're still alive. The Marquis of Xianxia looked as if he had seen a ghost. You really want me dead? Do you still want to whip my body? Jiang Tian looked at him with a smile. No, I don't dare. However, the Marquis of Xianxia felt as if he was being stared at by a devil. Boundless fear surged into his heart. He could not stand it all and sat directly on the ground. How is this possible? The Marquis of Purple Robe was also extremely shocked and could not believe it. Sir God Nyoben had already said that Jiang Tian was indeed killed by him. How could he come back from the dead? If Jiang Tian could escape unscathed from Sir God Nyoben, it would be too terrifying. Could it be because of the Nine Mysteries sect? The Nine Mysteries sect was fighting with Nyoben. Nyoben made a mistake in the chaos and killed someone else. It's possible that he mistook it for Jiang Xiqing. Thinking of this, the Marquis of Purple Robe gradually calmed down. He sneered and said confidently, Jiang Xiqing, you were lucky to escape. But this time you walked right into the trap. You won't be so lucky. Do you know that the entire Jianghan city and the 13 surrounding cities have gathered an army? Killing you is just a piece of cake for them. In the Marquis of Purple Robe's opinion, Jiang Tian's strength was similar to his. Maybe he was slightly stronger, but they were still at the same level. There were also many dukes and generals joining forces to besiege him. Moreover, there were hundreds of thousands of soldiers outside. When they formed a battle formation, they could even kill a sage. Taking down a semi-god realm warrior was just like catching a turtle in a jar. Is that so? Let's try it later. Jiang Tian smiled casually. The semi-god realm warriors among the dukes were still inferior to the sir-gods of the pantheon of demons. Jiang Tian and the others could kill them in the blink of an eye. Most importantly, given the current situation, Jiang Tian might not even need to take action. If the dukes knew that the Marquis of Purple Robe was working for the late Emperor Dongfang Jie, who abolished the dukedom system, they might tear him into pieces. Chapter 1947. Purple Marquis, you're underestimating me too much. Do you think I'm that kind of person who's afraid of death? Will I run away when there's a little danger? Do you think the title of War Goddess of the Empire is given for nothing? At this moment, another mocking voice sounded. Princess Royal Dongfang Moyu, who was wearing armor and a golden crown, also appeared on the city wall. She had delicate features and her skin was translucent. Her chest was high and her waist was slender. Her legs were long and slender. Her figure was fit and sexy to the extreme. But at the same time she held a snow-white scimitar in her hand. A terrifying killing intent and the vast aura of a divine lord surged out, causing one's heart to palpitate. How would I dare to underestimate the princess? Eldest princess, why aren't you in the temporary imperial residence? Why are you here in the middle of the night? Purple Marquis's heart skipped a beat when he saw the Princess Royal, but he quickly calmed down and bowed slightly. Purple Marquis, do you know what you've done wrong? Dongfang Moyu's face turned cold when she saw that Purple Marquis was pretending to be confused. I've always been loyal to my country. What wrong have I done wrong? Purple Marquis's face darkened, but he wasn't afraid. He was 100% sure that Divine Lord Qiling had assassinated Lin Hanqing. Since Jiang Tian had gone to 100 Flowers Peak, there was no one around Lin Hanqing that he could rely on. Lin Hanqing had only been a Divine Lord for a few years and he couldn't withstand a single blow from Divine Lord Qiling. He was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Even if Lin Hanqing was lucky enough to escape, Divine Lord Qiling would be able to escape unscathed and he wouldn't leave any evidence behind. It's the Divine Lord of the monster race who tried to assassinate Lin Hanqing. What does it have to do with me? Purple Marquis scoffed. Zhang Linfeng accused you of instructing the Divine Lord of the monster race to kill Xinyan Marquis Lin Hanqing. Do you still want to deny it? Jiang Tian sneered and waved his sleeves. The sleeves were dark and deep as if there was a universe hidden in the sleeves. Zhang Linfeng and his son also became bigger and bigger and they rolled out of the sleeves onto the city wall. Mr. Jiang is so powerful. How did he get so much evidence? This is Purple Marquis's weakness, his weakness. Everyone was shocked and they couldn't believe it. He couldn't understand how Sir God Qiling could fail when he had taken action personally and he was so powerful. Divine Lord Qiling is dead. Could it be that the Xinyuan Marquis residence has a peak divine transformation or even a half-saint? Many of the marquises felt uneasy and uneasy. Zhang Linfeng shivered and knelt on the ground. He pointed out, Purple Marquis colluded with the demon race's divine monarchs and attacked the residents of Zhenyuan Marquis. He kidnapped Lin Dyer at the Hundred Flowers Peak and attacked the ancestor of the Lin family. His goal was to lure the tiger away from the mountain and lure Mr. Jiang away from Lin Hanqing. Then he wanted me to lure Lin Hanqing to the Forgetting Peak and let divine monarch Qi Ling, one of the 4 great guardians of the pantheon of demons, kill him. Nonsense. You're slandering me. When Purple Marquis heard this, his eyes widened and his body trembled violently, as if he had been greatly wronged and humiliated. He pointed at Zhang Linfeng and shouted, "Who the hell is threatening you or ordering you to slander this king? It must be Lin Hanqing, isn't it? You're his servant." "I'm not slandering you. I'm your spy in the Lin mansion. Every time you gave me an order I left a mark on it." Zhang Linfeng and his son were trembling in fear, but they still shouted and showed the evidence. "You slandered me and tried to drive a wedge between you and me. You deserve to die." Purple Marquis shouted and his voice was like thunder. Everyone's blood boiled and they almost spat out blood. He looked gloomy and his eyes were fierce. He stretched out his hand and it became bigger. It was like a millstone and then a mountain pressing down on Zhang Linfeng and his son. "Eldest Princess, Grand Master." Zhang Linfeng and his son hurriedly dodged and looked at Jiang Tian and Dongfang Moyu for help, hoping to be protected. Spies don't have a good ending. But Jiang Tian didn't make a move at all. He just looked on coldly. Zhang Linfeng had plotted against the Lin family several times. More importantly, he had put his precious daughter in danger several times. How could Jiang Tian let him live? Even if Purple Marquis didn't kill him, Jiang Tian would kill him sooner or later. There was a loud boom. Under the palm, Zhang Linfeng and his son were smashed into powder, turning into a bloody mist that filled the air. Crystal clear broken bones flew everywhere. Before the two died, their faces were still full of shock and unwillingness. They couldn't believe and accept that Jiang Tian didn't help and they died so miserably. "You're trying to drive a wedge between me and the royal family. You deserve death." Purple Marquis shook his sleeves and cursed as if his anger hadn't subsided. Finally he cupped his hands and smiled. "I think that with eldest princess's wisdom, you definitely won't believe the nonsense of a mere guest of the Lin family, the slanderous words of a nobody." These words not only scolded Zhang Linfeng, but also humiliated Jiang Tian. "Purple Marquis, the evidence is conclusive. Don't try to quibble. Plead guilty and surrender." Dongfang Moyu was slender and enchanting, but she was full of beauty and strength. She raised her chin slightly and said in a commanding tone, "If you want to condemn someone you can always find a pretext." Hearing this, Marquis Purple Robe's expression changed drastically. Clenching his fists, he approached Dongfang Moyu and shouted, "My Purple Robe Marquis lineage has been loyal to the country for generations. We have shed our blood for the empire and we have done our best until we die. But because of Lin Hanqing's jealousy, we have suffered such injustice. This is outrageous. This Marquis refuses to accept it. Absolutely refuses to accept it. How dare you? Purple Marquis, you dare to be disrespectful to me. Are you rebelling?" Dongfang Moyu raised her eyebrows and shouted angrily. "I don't dare. But if the emperor forces me to rebel, then I have no choice but to rebel. Eldest princess, if you don't want to slander me and capture me in order to protect myself, I can only shed all pretense of cordiality and fight you to the death." Purple Marquis said with a pained expression. "Shed all pretense of cordiality? Fight to the death? You really want to rebel?" Dongfang Moyu had a furious look on his face. "What? Does eldest princess think that I don't have the ability to rebel?" Purple Marquis said proudly, "The 23 vassals in the south all worship me. In the 13 outer cities around me there are millions of soldiers. Eldest princess, I've offended you. This Marquis wants to capture you and bring you to His Majesty to ask, what are your intentions? Do you want to suppress the loyal officials and usurp the throne?" At this moment he was still playing the blame game. "Brothers, let's fight." Purple Marquis waved his hand proudly. "Fight." On the city wall, the faces of the vassals flashed with boundless determination as they roared together. "Fight." The 13 outer cities rumbled and trembled at the same time. Surging battle intent soared into the sky, shaking the sky and breaking through the flowing clouds. The momentum was astonishing. Chapter 1948. 10,000 soldiers from the territory of the Marquis of Xianxia. will fight for the righteous path. 30,000 soldiers from the territory of the Marquis of Xianxia will fight for the people. 20,000 soldiers from the territory of the Marquis of Red Flower will fight to get rid of the tyrannical ruler. Roars came out of the mouths of tens of thousands of people at the same time, forming a giant wave of sound that resounded in the sky like thunder. Following the furious roars, magnificent formations rose into the air from the 13 outer cities. Every battle array had 10,000 golden core cultivators as the base and a soul formation grand cultivator as the core. The power of 10,000 people combined into one and formed a terrifying energy. After being strengthened by large Daoist artifacts and sacred weapons, the terrifying Dharma laws and grand Daos were condensed, which could easily kill a soul formation cultivator and wound a real saint. In the end, 100,000 soldiers from Jianghan City will fight for the Marquis of Purple Robe. Following the loudest roar, a vast array rose into the air from Jianghan City. That formation was dozens of miles wide and it was made up of countless soldiers in sharp armor. They were guarding the sacred weapons and the soul formation grand cultivators. Each of the soldiers in the array was extremely powerful. Their eyes were as cold as iron and they were so firm that there wasn't a trace of emotion. It seemed that no one could shake their will to fight. On the other hand, the aura of 100,000 golden core realm cultivators flowed like a stream into a river and then a river into an ocean. They converged together to form a terrifying, imposing aura that filled the sky and caused the ground to tremble and the buildings to tremble. That's terrifying. When she saw this scene, even the beautiful face of eldest Princess Mou who'd been on the battlefield for a long time went pale, and her delicate body tensed up as her heart palpitated with fear. The hidden sects were superior and the divine sects had a long history and were powerful. In terms of individual strength, a half-saint elder of the divine sects was invincible in an empire and could kill anyone, including the king of a country. But why did such things rarely happen? The mortal dynasties and the hidden sects usually stayed out of each other's business. Could they achieve a certain level of balance? The reason was the power of the battle formation. A battle formation could be turned into a hole and sand could be gathered to form a tower. It was like how an ant was insignificant, but 10,000 or 100 million ants, if commanded well and cooperated well, could bite an elephant to death. This was the ultimate deterrent to the secluded sects, so they would not easily invade the secular world and offend a dynasty. Now 11 warlords, 11 armies, 11 battle formations, and more than 200,000 gold core soldiers were gathered in Jianghan City. The momentum was astonishing. It possessed the power to crush mountains and rivers, tear apart the heavens and destroy everything in its path. It could be said that this was the most powerful force in the empire, surpassing the imperial family. No one could fight him head-on. Woo 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 woo. A bleak horn sounded. Bugles rang out continuously, rising from all directions from far to near. Those bugles meant that battle formations were rapidly approaching the main city of Jianghan City. Even though the horn was hundreds of miles away, it still seemed to be ringing in everyone's ears. It seemed to have touched upon the laws of music. It could boost the soldiers' morale, make their blood boil and surge their will to fight. It could also intimidate the enemy's soul and disintegrate their will to fight. Although the effect was far inferior to the 12 divine sounds of Longhuan, they were essentially on the same path. The battle formations in Jianghan City were also the first to approach at the fastest speed. Release. Fight. The spirit armors on the 100,000 cultivators shone at the same time. Endless dermic powers flowed from everyone's body through the spirit armors and formations, converging into Purple Marquis's body. Purple Marquis leaped into the air, his aura rising steadily. He opened up his domain and his Dharma idol transformed into a 1,000-meter-tall giant. This giant had the same features as him. It stood on the ground holding an axe in one hand and a shield in the other. As soon as it appeared, a terrifying wave of energy filled the void. Its power was several times stronger than that of a half-step void return cultivator, causing mountains and rivers to explode. It was comparable to a true void return cultivator. He was confident that killing Zhang Tian and eldest Princess Mou would be as easy as taking something out of his pocket. Eldest Princess, do you still dare to fight with me? Purple Marquis was high and mighty, full of arrogance. He looked down at Zhang Tian and Mou as if he was looking at ants. Fight. The cultivators in the battle formations roared and activated their golden cores, making a series of rumbling sounds. Billowing essence qi gushed out from their dantian and was transformed, strengthened and condensed by the formations. Finally, it gathered on their bodies, Dao artifacts and sacred weapons in their hands. For a moment, images appeared in the sky. Rebel. Kill. Under the support of the vast battle formations, the 10 southern marquises were either shining with golden light, burning the sky with crimson flames, rolling black tides, or silver wings covering the sky, evolving different Dharma idols and divine domains. They stood more than 10 miles apart, surrounding eldest Princess Mou and Jiang Tian. Each of their strength rose and became more powerful than before, more than 10 times stronger than before. They were comparable to Fang Jinlong and eldest Princess Mou, or even stronger. Capture me? Punish this purple mark. Purple Marquis was smug and sneered. May I ask, what do you have? Purple-robed Marquis shouted with a fearless look on his face. This. At this moment, under Purple Marquis's questioning, eldest Princess Mou's face was full of anger, but she was actually speechless. In fact, if the armies of the 4 dukes were gathered, they only needed 2 dukes to fight against them. But the problem was that the southern marquises were just scattered sand, and it was impossible for them to unite. It was even more impossible for them to unite to protect the eastern royal family. If Purple Marquis could gather the 23 armies of the southern marquises, he would be invincible and unstoppable. Strength was always relative, not absolute. At this moment she couldn't help but panic and send a message to Jiang Tian with her divine sense. Mr. Jiang, what should we do now? I didn't expect Purple Marquis to act so quickly. In just 3 days he secretly gathered hundreds of thousands of troops and even avoided the surveillance of my spies. You are too reckless this time. This operation was quite rushed. Because she expected Purple Marquis to take extreme actions, she didn't dare to leave the palace these days, because the palace was protected by the divine formation and had the home advantage. Once she left the palace it would be more dangerous. However, all of a sudden Jiang Tian arrived. Without saying a word, he used the world-in-the-sleeve method to put Lin Yang and little Princess Dongfang Ying into the space created by the creation, and then brought eldest Princess Mou over to settle the score with the purple-robed Marquis. Because of the sudden incident, and because Jiang Tian had taught him the 12 magical sounds of Longhuan, Dongfang Moyu trusted Jiang Tian quite a bit. Therefore he didn't ask much and followed. Now eldest Princess Mou was filled with regret. Being surrounded by 11 battle formations was simply sending her head to die. Jiang Tian smiled faintly, his eyes lowered, and did not say a word, as if he had nothing to say. Chapter 1949. You want to catch me? Do you have the ability? Rely on you or Jiang Xiqing. Marquis Purple Robe's hair fluttered in the wind. He was proud of himself and laughed mockingly. His eyes were full of mockery, like a tiger looking at a struggling rabbit in its claws. Yes. Jiang Xiqing, even if you can escape from the siege of Sergodnyoben, so what? Marquis Xianxia supported a long river Dharma with the infusion of the Dharma power of the battle formation. His strength reached the peak of the divine transformation realm in an instant and could suppress elder Princess Mou. Perhaps because of the numerous humiliations and setbacks he'd suffered at Jiang Tian's hands. Amongst all the dukes, it was he that had the deepest hatred towards Jiang Tian, and he wished for nothing more than to eat Jiang Tian's flesh and skin, then grind his bones and scatter his ashes. At this moment, seeing Jiang Tian in trouble, he was the happiest. The annoyance in his heart had long been swept away. Instead, it was replaced by exultation and gloating to the extreme. He activated the long river Dharma across the sky. The Dharma power whistled and the domain spread out. He showed off his power and shouted crazily, "Do you think you're so great just because you have some achievements? You're just a lowly creature from a remote place like the Black Sun Star Zone. You're a frog at the bottom of a well. You're short-sighted and ignorant. You don't know the power of the battle formation of Saint Origin Continent. With one slap I can smash you, little brat, into pieces." He looked like a villain who was intoxicated with success. He looked down on everything and the corners of his mouth could tie up a cow. Seeing that Jiang Tian was silent, another marquis shook his head and laughed. "Since you already know our plan, you should avoid it and not get involved in this mess. Even if you want to get involved, you should report it to the imperial court and let the royal family mobilize the army. That's the safest way. Why did you come here yourself? Why did you come here to deliver your head? So that we can close the door and beat the dog, catch the turtle in the jar? Hearing this, Lin Yong in the heaven and earth sleeve felt that it was very reasonable. He sighed and said, Mr. Jiang is too anxious. Since my father has already escaped and he has obtained evidence, he should report this to Eastern Lu in the imperial city, and call for Count Nanhe and the other vassals who are close to the imperial family to slowly fight them. That's right, why is Senior Jiang in such a hurry? Even Dongfang Ying, who had always worshipped Jiang Tian, had a trace of disappointment and worry in her eyes. Sensing the terrifying pressure brought about by the military formation and the vassals, eldest Princess Mou was so anxious that she stomped her feet and said, Mr. Jiang, this is a peerless killing trap. Jiang Tian's face was indifferent. He smiled calmly and said, You can hide from the immortal consciousness of normal soul formation cultivators with the space Dharma treasures and thousands of soldiers. But how can you evade my gaze? What? Purple Marquis expression changed slightly. Could it be that you think you can compete with the battle formation of hundreds of thousands of troops of the southern vassals just because you managed to escape from Sir Godnyo Ben? The other Marquis, however, slapped his thigh crazily and laughed. Why wouldn't he think so? Because I've already said that he is a lowly person from outside the river. He doesn't know the horror of a battle formation at all. Haha, a brain is a good thing. Unfortunately, you don't have one. Marquis Xianxia laughed even more crazily. Although I'm not knowledgeable, I know the power of a battle formation. It's not that shallow. Jiang Tian spoke with a smile and he was calm and composed. It was as if he wasn't facing a powerful army, wasn't in a life-and-death battlefield, and was just chatting with a few good friends. What do you mean? Purple Marquis eyes were confused. He stared at Jiang Tian with a burning gaze as if he wanted to see through his mind. I think he's just pretending. The Marquis of Xianxia did not wait for Jiang Tian to reply, and his face was filled with impatience as he gnashed his teeth and roared. Marquis, originally Lin Hanqing and his son were extremely useless. If not for him being a shit-stirrer and interrupting our plans, they would have been played to death by us long ago. We have suffered losses and setbacks again and again because of this person. I'll kill him. His face was full of resentment. He spread out his domain, activated his Dharma idol and pressed down on Jiang Tian. Marquis Xianxia, you bastard, who are you calling trash? I'm just a piece of unpolished jade that hasn't been carved well? After Mr. Zhang's skillful training, didn't I successfully become a talent and beat your son until he was looking for his teeth on the ground? If I'm trash, then what is your son? Bastard. In the heaven and earth sleeve, Lin Yong cursed crazily, gnashing his teeth in anger. He was very concerned about the title of trash. He said that if he took down Marquis Xianxia one day he would tear his mouth apart. Lin Yong, we've already fallen into a group of enemies. Or do you want to think about how to escape? The little princess reminded timidly. Sai, what can I do? They're really fighting. There's no chance. At this moment Lin Yong was already frightened by the scene outside and sighed. Kill. Don't listen to his nonsense, kill them all. In the outside world the other dukes also began to move. Just as Grand Princess Mou's face flashed with endless determination, preparing to fight to the death, Jiang Tian smiled indifferently and said, Everyone listen to me first. If you still want to kill me after I finish speaking, then I, Jiang Xiqing, will definitely not resist. I won't even move. I'll wash my neck clean and wait for you to chop it off. Stop. Let's see what he has to say. That's right. In any case, he's already a fish on the chopping board. He's at our mercy. He won't be able to cause any waves. The moment these words were spoken, the Duke's curiosity was piqued. Since Jiang Tian and Grand Princess Mou had no chance of escaping, there was no harm in listening to it for the time being. At this moment even Mou was very curious. What kind of words can have such magical power? A single word can repel a million masters. Dongfang Ying was also confused. It can't be that Mr. Jiang guessed correctly, right? Lin Yang suddenly remembered Jiang Tian's previous guess and couldn't help but be dumbfounded as he mumbled to himself. On the day he and Jiang Tian returned to Maple City from the ancient medicine hall in the ice-sealed city to buy the Falling Sun Stone, several soul formation grand cultivators suddenly attacked the Duke of Xinyuan's residence and framed the Duke of Beijiang. Among those soul formation grand cultivators, one of them was a member of the royal family, but he had been demonized. In order to prevent his conspiracy from being exposed, he directly committed suicide. Jiang Tian speculated based on the details that the real supporter behind Purple Marquis might be the late Emperor Dongfang. Also, Dongfang should be inextricably linked to the pantheon of demons. Although this guess seemed unbelievable, Jiang Tian was very certain at that time. So far, some of Jiang Tian's speculations had been confirmed. For example, Qi Ling, the Grand Cultivator of the Demon Clan who helped Purple Marquis assassinate Lin Hanqing this time, was one of the 4 guardians of the Pantheon of Demons. No, it should be said that the Pantheon of Demons and Sir God Qi Ling wanted Lin Hanqing dead, while Purple Marquis only provided the relevant information and ordered Zhang Linfeng to cooperate with Qi Ling to lure Lin Hanqing to a suitable location. Just as Lin Yang's thoughts were in a mess. Jiang Tian also spoke in a neither fast nor slow manner. I have found out the origin of the demon King Han Guang of the Pantheon of Demons. What? You found out? The Duke's face turned serious and the mocking expression disappeared. Instead, he became serious and looked at Jiang Tian attentively, waiting for him to continue. Because the demon King Han Guang appeared out of nowhere 300 years ago. He was very powerful and defeated the grand cultivators of the demon clan. He unified billions of demon clans and established the Pantheon of Demons. He was faintly on par with the 10 sacred grounds and the divine sects. However, his origin was mysterious, as if he had jumped out of a stone egg. No one could say for sure what his origin was. 500 years ago he was the late Emperor Dongfang, who was chased all the way to the demon-infested ridge and fell into the critical canyon because of the abolition of the feudal system and the implementation of the county system. Jiang Tian's voice wasn't loud. However, it was like a clap of thunder that resounded through the entire place and shocked everyone. In an instant, the original noise seemed to have been completely swallowed by a black hole. The entire place was silent. Only a still scene was left. How is this possible? Many marquises were frozen in place, their faces full of shock. They didn't move at all, like clay sculptures. Chapter 1950. The boundless images supported by the vassals were sometimes solid and real, sometimes illusory and indistinct. The rapid changes proved just how unstable their emotions were at this moment, and it stirred up great waves that shocked the heavens. This was hard for them to accept. They only knew about the cooperation between the Purple Marquis and the Myriad Demon Palace 3 days ago, when the Purple Marquis decided to kill Lin Hanqing after the banquet. In the Purple Marquis's plan, the Myriad Demon Palace would support the southern vassals to overthrow the Eastern dynasty and establish a new court. After the success, the Myriad Demon Palace would become the protector of the new court, but they would not interfere with the normal operations of the new court. In their impression, the Myriad Demon Palace was high and mighty. It was only because of their relationship with the Purple Marquis that they helped, making the vassals feel like they got a great bargain. But now, after hearing this news, everyone's heart fell into the abyss. They felt a chill all over their body. The Marquis of Xianxia felt like, when he was a child, he had no strength to even truss a chicken. On a hot afternoon, he was bored to death as he strolled in the back garden. He found a green object and thought it was an emerald necklace dropped by a concubine. He excitedly wanted to pick it up and play with it. When he got closer, he found that it was a green, slippery and cold poisonous snake with a triangular head. The poisonous snake stuck out its tongue and its eyes were cold. The slippery and disgusting feeling seemed to reach his heart. We are playing with fire. If Jiang Xiqing did not lie to us, then there must be a conspiracy. We have been played by Dongfang or the Purple Marquis. Not only did the Marquis of Xianxia think this, the other vassals were also alarmed. Back then, Dongfang, who was overthrown and chased to death by them, became their backing to overthrow Dongfang Lu, who did not support his reform. How could Dongfang be so kind as to help them? Moreover, Dongfang's hatred for the feudal system was deep in his bones. Therefore, when he just ascended to the throne and took control of the imperial power, he did not have enough time to prepare and immediately took action against the corrupt feudal vassals. When the war broke out, his family and loyal subordinates all died in the hands of the vassals. He was even chased off the throne and chased like a stray dog to the evil-infested ridge. He saw with his own eyes that in order to avoid being humiliated by the vassals, his concubines and princesses committed suicide. In his endless despair and hatred, he fell into the Grand Canyon. After going through this life and death calamity and suffering humiliation, Dongfangjia's hatred towards the marquis should be even greater. In this world, was there anything more serious than killing one's son or humiliating one's wife? Moreover, he was not a weakling. He was a man of great talent and bold vision. As the ruler of a country, his status was respected. This difference was even more obvious on him. This kind of emotion would become even more intense. If one thought about it carefully, they would understand it very clearly. Dongfangjia loathed Eastern Lu, who had not supported him in dethroning the vassals and had still reconciled with them after he was exiled and killed. He loathed these vassals even more. Therefore, he used Purple Marquis as a troublemaker to stir up the conflict between the Marquis and the royal family, starting a war. He watched coldly from the sidelines and hid behind the scenes with a mocking smile. He enjoyed the dogfight between the enemies. When the royal family and the vassals were both injured, he would appear and easily reap the harvest. Purple Marquis's expression greatly changed. After being stunned for a few seconds, he angrily pointed at Jiang Tian and said, "Jiang Xiqing, you are slandering me. Demon King Hanguang is a great demon with the bloodline of the heaven-devouring python. How could he be related to Dongfangjia?" "Haha, so you were also tricked." Jiang Tian saw this and laughed instead. Before, he originally thought that Purple Marquis and Dongfangjia were working together selflessly to fight for their ideals. Like Dongfangjia, they hated the feudal system to the core. Even after Dongfangjia established a new dynasty, they would hand over their land and authority, leaving behind only a title or a minister. They would no longer be hereditary. But now it seemed that Purple Marquis was also deceived and played by Dongfangjia. But on second thought, it was no wonder. Purple Marquis had always been an extremely selfish person. Hundreds of years ago, Purple Marquis hated the county system and was the vanguard to overthrow the late emperor Dongfangjia. Even now, he was still thinking about taking over his land and becoming the emperor. How could he change his attitude so quickly and completely and become a supporter of the county system? "What do you mean by tricked? You are just spouting nonsense." Purple Marquis was shocked, but he forced himself to calm down. Thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning. Han Guang was Dongfangjia and he had definitely been tricked. No wonder every time he met Han Guang, he felt a sense of familiarity from Han Guang's actions. His appearance, bloodline, cultivation methods, and even the gods and precepts that he had condensed could all be changed. However, there would always be some traces left behind in his speech and actions. But now he had no other choice. The most important thing now was to make the Marquis believe in him, kill Jiang Xiqing and the eldest princess, and then find other forces such as the giants of the hidden sects, to help him overthrow the imperial court and even the pantheon of demons. He swept his gaze over the numerous vassals and army formations, a look of boundless determination appearing on his face as he waved his hand and shouted. He waved his hand and said, "Don't listen to this man's lies and shake the morale of the army. Now that we've joined forces, we're only a step away from success and recognition. After we kill this bastard and demoness Inkfeather, we'll directly attack the enemy's den and breach the imperial capital. We'll kill the incapable ruler and fulfill our lofty aspirations to save all living beings in the world and establish peace for all ages." Plus, since I said so, of course I have evidence. Jiang Tian smiled and released Niu Ben's god unhurriedly. He said with a smile, "Niu Ben's god is one of the 4 guardians of the pantheon of demons. Is that enough?" This is Niu Ben's god. What? God Niu Ben was killed by him and only his god is left. Isn't he too strong? The whole place was filled with gasps. At this moment, the faces of the vassals changed wildly. They were shocked and couldn't believe it. A celestial device that could break through space, arrive in an instant and realize long-distance surveillance consumed a lot of high-grade heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Moreover, it required extremely skilled craftsmen to carve mysterious formation patterns. It wasn't something that anyone could control. In the Saint Origin world, generally speaking, only the top holy clans or holy lands or empires had it. The vassal families didn't have this kind of surveillance celestial device. Even the fragrant medicine house didn't have it. Therefore, Landlord Wang could only get the news from the disciple who was a guest in the Eastern Canyon Duke Mansion. Eastern Lu and Crown Prince Dongfang Ding already knew about the battle on Hundred Flowers Peak. However, to avoid alerting the enemy, they naturally sealed the outside world. In short, the vassals had no idea about the details of the battle. Before this, they thought that Jiang Tian had escaped by luck. They didn't expect that he had killed God Niuben. This made them feel incredulous. They looked at Jiang Tian in shock and fear as if they were dreaming. Mr. Zhang's strength is actually so terrifying? You should know that he used divine powers similar to Qi into Trinity. It was only a doppelganger that went to 100 Flowers Peak. Not only them but even Princess Mou's delicate body trembled slightly. Her face was full of shock. Her beautiful eyes were wide open as she looked at Jiang Tian's tall and dignified back with extraordinary splendor. It was as if she had met Jiang Tian for the first time. Although she knew that Jiang Tian's strength was extraordinary, she didn't expect Jiang Tian's strength to be so strong. He killed God Niuben with only a doppelganger. Chapter 1951. Sir God Niuben was famous and had reached the peak of the soul formation stage. His strength was comparable to a half-sage and was close to that of a void-returned saint. Even in the entire Saint Origin world he was a giant. With only a doppelganger he killed Sir God Niuben of Monster Clan. This is too unbelievable. As for Lin Yang and Dongfang Ying, they were shocked to the extreme. They were dumbfounded and could not say a word. Master Xianxia thanks Mr. Zhang for not killing me. Niu Pai God kowtowed in front of Jiang Tian and shivered as he kowtowed on the ground. Don't talk nonsense. Tell them the truth. Jiang Tian was calm and at ease as he accepted the bow of the defeated opponent. Yes, master. Xianxia, I'll do it. Like an old eunuch facing a majestic emperor, Sir God Niuben bowed again and again in fear and trepidation. Only then did he dare to stand up. However, in front of the feudal lords, Sir God Niuben was arrogant and domineering to the extreme. I can testify that Demon King Hanguang is Dongfang Jie. Don't be stubborn and refuse to realize your error. Put down your weapons immediately, disperse the army formation and abandon the darkness for the light. Do I have to say it again? So we've been fooled. When the feudal lords heard this, they were almost convinced. Their faces were ashen and their morale was low. Among the feudal lords, only Marquis Shanshui was unwilling to accept this. After all, he had lost his fief to Lin Hanqing. Now he could only fight to the end to have a chance of survival. Besides, he was not afraid of anything. He shouted boldly, Niuben, if you say so, then so be it. Your god was captured by Jiang Xiqing. Naturally you will listen to him. Whatever he tells you to say, you will say it. It's not credible at all. Damn you, my spit is a nail. Why would I lie? How dare you slander me? Believe it or not, I will trample you to death with my hoof. Hearing this, Niuben's god flew into a rage and vast magic power surged. Niuben, prove it to them. If you can't prove it, what's the use of having you? I'll kill you now. Jiang Tian's face was calm but his eyes were cold. Niuben's god was shivering in fear. It flickered as if it was about to collapse. Suddenly he slapped his head and took out a strand of hair from his storage pouch. He bowed and flattered. This is a strand of hair from the demon emperor Han Guang that I collected. It contains a strand of his blood and spirit. With the blood rebirth technique and the body creation technique, I can deduce the changes in Han Guang's appearance throughout his life. Whether or not he is the emperor of the fallen kingdom Dongfang Jie will be obvious at a glance. In the next moment, a look of fear and uneasiness appeared on his face. He said in shame, it's just that my magic power is low. I need at least half a year to be able to simulate his appearance when he reaches adulthood. Let me do it. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and pointed at the sky. Vast wood elemental True Yuan burst out from Jiang Tian's fingertips like a torrent of green light spots, forming a mysterious talisman. The talisman was made up of countless tiny and mysterious runes. Each tiny rune was like a small world when heaven and earth were created. It was full of vitality and could nurture everything. The green talisman quickly wrapped around the strand of hair and poured into it. Bang! In the hair, a drop of blood was extracted and appeared in the air. It floated like a crystal-clear agate. In the blink of an eye, a vast amount of life essence was poured into it. The drop of blood quickly turned into an embryo the size of a soybean. It kept expanding and the spine, hands and feet, facial features and hair gradually became clear. It was growing into a human. Next, scenes appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was both real and illusory. The blood in the hair was nourished and shaped into a human body. The memory of Dongfang Jie in his soul was also awakened. The baby grew up quickly. He first became a child with a pure gaze, but with the majesty of an emperor. Then he became a teenager standing quietly with a gloomy face. He seemed to have seen the feudal lords of the empire meddling in politics, ignoring the royal family, oppressing the common people, annexing the land and making the people miserable. Then he became a teenager, sometimes with a vigorous aura, traveling the pugilistic world, visiting the common people and practicing in the sections. Sometimes he was pale and thin, reading ancient books in the Taisher Pavilion and debating with loyal advisors. When he became the crown prince, he was high-spirited, looking for a teacher, forming his own cabinet, proposing to abolish the feudal system and promote the system of counties. His eyes burned with madness. In almost 10 seconds the past appeared. The former emperor Dongfang, who was now the demon emperor Han Guang's life, which was full of ups and downs, appeared in front of everyone's eyes. In the blink of an eye, 500 years had passed. This was a lonely and crazy life. This was a lonely and cruel life. This Han Guang is really Dongfang. Some of the feudal lords murmured, their faces full of despair. We have been used. Even the Marquis of Xianxia was dumbfounded. His heart fell into the abyss. His fighting spirit and hot blood cooled faster than cow dung in winter. Dongfang's plan was to use the Marquis of Purple Robe to provoke the inherent conflict between the feudal lords and the royal family. Then, with the pantheon of demons and the power accumulated over hundreds of years, he would come back and crush Dongfang Lu and all the feudal lords who rebelled against him in the past to avenge them. He had never thought of supporting the Marquis of Purple Robe to become the emperor. He still wanted to promote the system of counties in the empire. All the feudal lords would not even be given idle titles and would be executed. He would build a country where the human race and the demon race were equal, and the demon race was even higher than the human race. The human race would worship the mighty demon race. The pantheon of demons would be the pope that was higher than the imperial power. Dongfang would be the highest god. Thank goodness fellow cultivator Jiang reminded us. Otherwise, wouldn't we have been used by Dongfang? Not only would we have done all the work for him, we would have died in the end. Fellow cultivator Jiang not only saved us, but also the entire empire. Once the civil war broke out, I'm afraid millions of cultivators would die an unnatural death. The lives of mortals without cultivation would be as cheap as dogs. Starving bodies would be everywhere, bones would be piled up, and the people would be miserable. It would be difficult to recover in hundreds of years. How can the Eastern Empire stand in the world? The key is that the Black Moon Empire and other neighboring countries in the south were originally eyeing the Eastern Empire covetously, trying to encroach on it. If our civil war broke out, wouldn't it give them a chance to take advantage of it? They wouldn't give you time to recover at all. Instead, they would take advantage of your internal strife to defeat you and divide you up. From then on, the Eastern Empire would be destroyed. We must abandon the darkness for the light and rely on Mr. Jiang. Mr. Jiang could even kill the divine Lord Niu Pai, let alone the Marquis of Purple Robe. Yes, under Mr. Jiang's leadership, the Eastern Empire will definitely prosper and achieve a great recovery and resurgence. We must follow closely. In the midst of the discussion, the 5 feudal lords automatically moved away from the Marquis of Purple Robe and approached Jiang Tian. Chapter 1952. The southern vassals bowed deeply to Jiang Tian to show their highest respect. They begged for mercy and expressed their deep apologies. They all claimed that they were blinded by lard and asked the Grand Princess and Mr. Jiang not to blame them. The situation had taken a turn for the worse, and the wind had unknowingly changed. Jiang Tian, who had been a stumbling block in their grand plan, had suddenly become their savior. Especially when they thought that Jiang Tian could even subdue a peerless almighty like Niu Ben, they trembled uneasily. Even the last trace of fighting spirit had completely disappeared, leaving only deep fear. Mr. Jiang was able to turn the tables in such a desperate situation. It turns out that the famous demon emperor Han Guang is actually his elder brother Dongfang. Seeing this scene, Grand Princess Dongfang Ying felt like she was dreaming and couldn't believe it. Originally, millions of soldiers had surrounded them, and the battle formation was unstoppable and indestructible. She and Jiang Tian had already fallen into a peerless killing trap with almost no possibility of escaping. But now, Jiang Tian had disintegrated Purple Marquis's alliance with just a few words. Purple Marquis, who was originally the core of the leadership, had become the target of public criticism. Having a high cultivation and being brave and good at fighting were admirable, but the most brilliant thing was to subdue the enemy without fighting. That was even more commendable. This made Grand Princess Mou's admiration for Jiang Tian reach an unprecedented level. After all, Grand Princess Mou was the core of the royal family. She had a strategic position and her perspective was different from ordinary people. Everything she did was based on the overall interests of the empire. In her opinion, the vassals should be suppressed and even eliminated. However, the cultivators and warriors under the vassals were also the empire's subjects and the empire's most precious wealth. If a war broke out, even if the royal family won, the cultivators and warriors would die. That would be an immeasurable loss. There are still people who are not convinced. Niu Ben's god glanced at Marquis Xianxia and a few other stubborn people who were still standing behind Purple Marquis and shouted, "Stubborn! Blockhead! Stupid humans! Do you really think you can resist Mr. Zhang's strength? Mr. Zhang has the strength of a void return saint. He can even kill the abyssal demon dragon. Do you think your battle formation can stop him?" Niu Ben's god spoke harshly and his eyes were disdainful. What? He even killed the abyssal devil dragon. This is an ancient magic dragon. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. They didn't dare to believe it. If they were only shocked when they saw Niu Ben being intimidated by Jiang Tian, then at this moment, they were scared out of their wits and couldn't stand still. How is this possible? The remaining vassals were so scared that they couldn't stop trembling, and their fighting spirit had completely disappeared. Even the most stubborn and resolute of vassals had their will to fight crumbled in an instant, not daring to oppose Jiang Tian. Everyone should have heard of the black gold true dragon halberd. Jiang Tian took out the halberd and played with it for a while. The torrential pressure of a supreme quality sacred artifact was unleashed, shaking the heavens and shaking the earth. It made it difficult for the vassals to breathe, suffocating them. Their bones rumbled as if they were about to shatter and their souls were about to split apart. The golden true dragon halberd appeared. This immediately caused all the doubts to collapse on their own. It also completely shattered the last bit of hope in the hearts of the lords. It's true. He really killed the abyssal demonic dragon. The remaining vassals were as pale as paper and trembled. The morale of the army was shattered. Coupled with the pressure of the sacred artifact, the essence chi and forbidden regions of the golden core and nascent soul cultivators were shattered and retracted. Many battle formations were instantly defeated and on the verge of collapse. As the Dharma power of the battle formations disappeared, the Dharma forms and domains of the vassals were destroyed one after another. Their aura and combat strength fell again and again like a receding tide. "Kneel down and admit your mistakes." Niu Ben's deity shouted loudly, acting high and mighty. "Do you really think that Mr. Jiang can't kill you? Your so-called battle formations can't even withstand a single blow in Mr. Jiang's hands. He's just merciful and cherishes the lives of these cultivator soldiers. That's why he's talking so much nonsense with all of you. Otherwise he would have already slapped all of you to death like swatting flies. Mr. Jiang, we know our mistakes. Please, Mr. Jiang, show mercy and forgive us for offending you." Marquis Qingshan and Huang Jinting greet Saint Siqing. Marquis Redflower and Yi Songliang greet Saint. "Congratulations to Saint for killing the demonic dragon and obtaining the sacred artifact. You've established your might." Marquises and divine lords rushed over from all directions like a tide and bowed as if they had seen a deity. They were respectful, fearful and devout. Actually, Niu Ben's words were not exaggerated. Although decimating abyss was at the soul formation realm, his bloodline was special. Coupled with the supreme grade sacred artifact in his hand, his strength was close to that of a void return sage. Jiang Tian could even kill him. Destroying battle formations and killing vassals was really a piece of cake. "Saint, I've really been deceived by the purple-robed marquis. From the first day I saw you, I felt that you were talented and extraordinary. One day you'll definitely reach the peak and become a Dao ancestor looking down on this continent. I've been waiting for this day and night. Today I've finally gotten what I wanted. I'm really excited." The Marquis of Xianxia flew over in a panic and knelt at Jiang Tian's feet. He hugged Jiang Tian's calf with both hands and started crying loudly. "Frem, don't dirty my clothes," Jiang Tian scolded. His true essence surged and sent the Marquis of Xianxia flying. "I was too excited. Sir, please don't be angry. My family has some money and it's enough to buy a few Daoist robes. Sir, if you need it, you can take it as you wish." The Marquis of Xianxia climbed up pathetically. He looked embarrassed but was still full of joy. He praised Zhang Tian incessantly. The purple-robed marquis is ambitious and disloyal. He stirred up trouble time and time again, trying to harm Saint Xiqing, the Jinyuan marquis, the Lin family, and the empire. I can't wait to get rid of him every day. I only hate that my cultivation is too low and I'm too weak to. Marquis of Xianxia, why do I remember that you supported the purple-robed marquis the most and hated Saint Xiqing the most? The Marquis of Qingshan Huang Zhenting said. Nonsense. I collected evidence in order to preserve my strength and win the trust of the purple-robed marquis. Spy, do you understand? I am the spy of Saint Xiqing. I was waiting for the saint to explode so that I could rise up and serve the saint. The purple-robed marquis and I can't live under the same sky. Don't stop me. Today I will fight 300 rounds with him. The Marquis of Xianxia glared at purple-robed marquis and said righteously. He put on a posture of fighting to the death with the purple-robed marquis. At this moment the purple-robed marquis could no longer bear it. His expression changed rapidly. Disappointment, anger, unwillingness, resentment, and in the end, it all turned into endless despair and regret. He fell to his knees and begged for mercy. Saint, this old man knows his mistake. Please have mercy, princess, spare this sinner's life. This old man is willing to commit suicide to thank the world. At this moment the purple-robed marquis really regretted, thoroughly regretted. Chapter 1953. Purple Marquis had always thought that he was the one who benefited the most from this battle. He would use the pantheon of demons to crush the feudal lords, eliminate the Dongfang royal family, and ascend to the throne of the emperor, overlooking the world and standing at the peak. When the day came for him to ascend to the throne, the resources under his control would be no small matter, and he would have many bargaining chips to exchange with the divine sects and sacred grounds. It was another matter if he would still regard the pantheon of demons as the national religion and respect the sect leader as the leader as he had promised. Although the pantheon of demons was powerful, it was still a demon force after all, and was regarded as an enemy by the human orthodoxies. Moreover, its strength was much weaker than the divine sects of the sacred grounds. When the time came, he could use the conflict between humans and demons to persuade the leaders of the divine sects of the sacred grounds to kill the pantheon of demons. It would not be difficult. However, he did not expect Demon Emperor Han Guang to be his mortal enemy, Dongfang Jie. He was just a troublemaker used by Dongfang Jie. When the birds are gone, the bow is put away and the hound is cooked. Purple Marquis certainly understood this. The day he overthrew the Dongfang royal family was also the day he died. This already made him extremely sad. However, what made him feel even more sorrowful was Zhang Tian's strength. He was unexpectedly strong. Purple Marquis had also realized how powerful Zhang Tian was, which was why he chose to assassinate Lin Hanqing and destroy the Jinyuan Ho family first. He wanted Zhang Tian to become a duckweed without any backing, and then he would gather enough strength to kill him. However, he had never imagined that Zhang Tian, a rogue cultivator from outside the river who came from a remote and desolate place, would actually be powerful to such an extent. The pantheon of demons had so many soul formation grand cultivators, who could be considered peerless giants, but none of them succeeded. This kind of peerless killing situation was resolved by Zhang Tian. How can there be such a person in the human world? He must be the reincarnation of an immortal. Purple Marquis sadly realized that he had chosen the wrong opponent. It was not that he had chosen the wrong Jinyuan Ho, but that Jinyuan Ho had Zhang Tian by his side. If he had a chance to choose again, no matter how the pantheon of demons tried to bewitch him, he would never choose to start a bloodbath and eliminate Jinyuan Ho. Among the marquises he could already be considered powerful. His son, Xianxia's talent and cultivation were decent as well. 3 generations of prosperity meant 10 generations would not be a problem. However, because of his ambition and his underestimation of the enemy, everything was lost. At this moment he didn't dare to continue fighting because even a peerless giant like Niu Ben and an ancient monster like the decimating abyss weren't a match for Zhang Tian, so he was even less of a match. Stubbornly resisting would only lead to death. If he surrendered and begged for mercy with a sincere attitude, he might have a chance of survival. Spare your life. Give me a reason. Zhang Tian sneered. He stepped into the void, his posture graceful and otherworldly. He approached Purple Marquis step by step as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. His aura was vast, majestic, and divine, causing Purple Marquis heart to palpitate. I know everything about the pantheon of demons, including the troop arrangements, the traps and the barriers, as well as the shortcomings of the cultivation arts of the great demons. I only beg for Saint to spare my life. I am willing to tell you the truth. The pantheon of demons is the Empire's mortal enemy, and Saint must eliminate it. I need this information. Seeing that Zhang Tian had no intention of letting him go, Purple Marquis pleaded, I once went deep into the critical canyon and saw an ancient treasure that seemed to contain rare treasures. Only I know the route. His mind spun at lightning speed and many thoughts came one after another. He was extremely wealthy and his cultivation resources were as vast as the sea, but they would soon be confiscated. Zhang Tian was completely at his mercy. Moreover, although Zhang Tian was at the nascent soul realm, he had the strength of a void return saint. To be honest, although he had a lot of resources, none of them were useful to a void return saint. He had many cultivation manuals, many of which were even on par with the imperial family's Eastern Rising Purple Qi. However, for Zhang Tian to reach such a realm, his cultivation arts were probably of an even higher level, and he didn't care about these at all. It was as if this was the only bargaining chip he had. You don't know as much as I do. Zhang Tian didn't say anything and slapped down with his palm. This palm was like the palm of a Buddha. It was incomparably heavy, as if it could crush the world and destroy the stars. In Purple Marquis's perception, the entire world was rapidly disappearing. Patches of darkness formed a pure black background. In the universe, only Zhang Tian, who stood tall like a Buddha, and that palm that seemed to fill the heavens and earth, was left. The palm formed a supreme domain that froze matter, vitality, laws, and even the great Tao. I can't escape it all. Sigh, it's all my fault for being blind. Purple Marquis wailed in his heart. In the eyes of everyone, he didn't struggle at all and just knelt on the spot. Even his physical body, God, and even his spirit were crushed by Zhang Tian's palm. The space seemed to be as thin as a cicada's wing. Crystal clear broken bones flew everywhere, and divine blood filled with surging essence and vast laws surged in the sky. The fluctuations of laws shook heaven and earth, triggering bursts of thunder. The might of a saint is unparalleled. We admit defeat. Saint, we admire you. Many marquises were so scared that they curled up and knelt on the ground like quails in the cold wind. Their faces were as pale as paper, without a trace of blood. Zhang Tian's palm just now was as easy as swatting a fly, but the mysteries it contained were endless and extremely profound. Even a soul formation cultivator couldn't resist it. Oh my God. Marquis Xianxia wasn't far away. He only felt that his head and face were covered in blood and flesh, and there was a faint burning feeling, which was caused by the remaining vitality and laws. He touched his sticky hair and found an eyeball surrounded by laws and surging vitality. It was connected to Meridian's flesh and blood. I died so miserably. The eyeball blinked and emitted a vague sound, mournful and resentful. Soul formation grand cultivators were powerful. They could be reborn from a drop of blood and have billions of clones. This eyeball contained Purple Marquis's bloodline and divine soul, which gave birth to an angry spirit. Oh my God. Marquis Xianxia was so scared that his eyes rolled back and he immediately fainted. His eyes rolled back and kept twitching as if he had been electrocuted. White foam came out of his mouth with a hint of green. He was so scared that his courage was gone. Zhang Tian had been bullied by Li Ludao many times in his previous life, so he hated the Marquis Xianxua's family. But then Li Ludao's power was destroyed and Marquis Xianxia was so frightened. Zhang Tian suddenly felt relieved, or rather he didn't want to argue with Marquis Xianxia anymore. It was like when you went back to kindergarten and faced the bully who bullied you in kindergarten, you would only find it funny but not arouse hatred. Marquis Xianxia didn't know that he had avoided a disaster in a flash by passing out. Go to hell. The next moment, Zhang Tian looked away and thought. Instantly, strands of law of annihilation began to spread along Purple Marquis's body inch by inch. Even his broken bones, divine blood, and even fragments of his soul were all burned to ashes, completely vanishing from this world and turning into nothingness. One of the top 10 cultivators of the empire, Shin Higu, the Marquis of Purple Marquis, was dead. Saint, we surrender. Purple Marquis's army collapsed. Many Golden Core warriors knelt in the sky and didn't have the slightest intention to resist. Dad. Then a scream came from the army. It was Purple Marquis's son. Xianxia saw his father completely die and screamed. Zhang Xiqing, if I return to the peak, I swear I'll kill you. Chapter 1954. A cold glint flashed through Jiang Tian's eyes. The Purple Marquis was ambitious and had committed countless sins. Be it Xin Higu or Xianxiao, all of them had committed unspeakable sins. No matter how many times they died, they would not be able to wash away their sins. Even though Xianxiao's cultivation was crippled, his killing intent was still the same. Jiang Tian was not a kind person and he would not be soft-hearted and soft-hearted. Since he was going to cut the grass, he had to remove the roots to prevent it from growing again. Not only did he have to kill Xianxiao, the Purple Marquis bloodline would be cursed to death as well. It's your turn. You swore to kill me? Xianxiao, you can reincarnate 10 more times. Jiang Tian smiled coldly and his deep eyes were emotionless. His sleeves fluttered and he opened his right hand about to grab Xianxiao. Heavens! I can't accept this. Xianxiao shrieked tragically and howled into the sky. Tears streamed down his face and his handsome face was contorted with hatred and resentment. At that moment, the generals and cultivators under the Purple Marquis did not move and would not help him. The feudal lords watched on with cold eyes. Compared to the conflict between humans and demons, the struggle between the feudal lords and the royal family was not worth mentioning. The Purple Marquis had colluded with the demons to overthrow the Eastern dynasty. Wouldn't the pantheon of demons and their former mortal enemy, Dongfang Jia, benefit? If the demons made a comeback, wouldn't they be the ones to suffer? Jiang Xiqing, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Xianxiao roared furiously. He was one of the top geniuses of the empire who had reached the nascent soul realm at a young age. He had the chance to follow his father to kill the tyrannical and fatuous ruler and inherit the empire as the crown prince and emperor. There might even be a day when he could expand his territory and become the overlord of this continent, achieving immortal feats. But now he was at the end of his rope and everything was destroyed. Suddenly, a rain of flowers fell around Xianxiao. The petals were translucent, extremely beautiful and moving. These petals quickly spread out, forming countless runes that formed a huge talisman. It was like a barrier that protected Xianxiao in the middle. Bang! The azure binding dragon law that Jiang Tian struck out with his palm was actually blocked by this flower rain talisman. Although the flower rain barrier rippled a little under the immense force of the palm, it was incomparably tough and quickly recovered. A vast sacred and otherworldly aura slowly descended from the rain of flowers. It was as if the person who cast the spell was incomparably noble and untainted by the mortal world. Who are you? Blooming flowers with a single thought. The sovereign descends upon the world. Could it be? Grand Princess Mou's expression suddenly became incomparably solemn as she looked at the rain of flowers. Luoying sect. Jiang Tian could feel a surge of vitality from the rain of flowers rune. It was a rich wood attribute aura, as if it was the beginning of the world. His heart trembled and his eyes flashed. The Luoying sect was proficient in wood elemental cultivation arts and had created a world of its own. It had several void-returning saints and soul formation cultivators and was one of the top 5 sects in the divine origin world. It was comparable to the ancient medicine hall. This rain of flowers rune was at the level of a peak Dao artifact. With Jiang Tian's current strength, he could definitely break it with an all-out attack. However, Jiang Tian did not act rashly. Because the sect's daughter, Lian Huahun. She was the person who brought Huang Linger from Earth to the divine origin world. When Jiang Tian returned to the divine origin world and took Huang Linger away, he would probably need to obtain Lian Huahun's permission. Therefore, Jiang Tian naturally did not want to offend her. Xianxiao knew that he had just escaped death. His clear eyes shot out rays of disbelief, and his handsome face was also filled with ecstasy. He knew that he was saved. Reinforcements had arrived. At this moment, the horizon lit up with multicolored, ever-changing rays of light. It was so beautiful that no one dared to look directly at it. If one looked carefully, they would discover that the specks of light that made up this multicolored light were all made up of sparkling and translucent flower petals. The multicolored light elongated as if it was a bridge. A long rainbow spread out in the sky. 2 graceful women stepped on the bridge that was paved with beautiful flower petals, gracefully walking over. One of the women was dressed in a white dress that was not tainted by a speck of dust. She floated like an immortal, and her age was around 20 years old. Her facial features were exquisite, and her eyes were filled with a spring smile. She was otherworldly and carried a hint of flirtatious charm. Her figure was exquisite and her chest was high, almost bursting out of her clothes. Her waist was slender as if it could be grasped with one's hand. Especially her pair of beautiful legs that were long and straight. Looking at her pair of eyes that seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life, it was obvious that her actual lifespan far exceeded her appearance. The other woman was dressed in a green dress. On the surface she looked a little younger, as if she was only 17 or 18 years old. Her face was young and she had a pair of peach blossom eyes. She looked like a little sister next door, gentle and amiable. The right side of the two women's clothes were embroidered with fallen flowers. The sleeves of their dresses were also embroidered with flowers and plants. It was extremely exquisite and there was a natural charm to it. When Xianxia saw the embroidery, he was instantly overjoyed. "Fairies, are you two experts from the Luoying sect?" "Yes, we are the disciples of Grand Elder Xianxia." The older woman smiled faintly and said casually, "You must be Xianxia. Ancestor Qianma." She actually still remembers the Shen family. Xianxiao's face was filled with ecstasy. So the Shen family's roots are so deep. Qianma is actually their ancestor. As for Jiang Tian, his expression froze and thoughts came one after another. But why didn't Qianma stand up when the Purple Marquis family was destroyed in my previous life? Yes, this is because of her personality and the Luoying sect's motto. Cherish the common people, treat everyone equally and do not discriminate between each other. Love with impartiality and non-aggression. Great love is also not love. In her eyes, the Shen family is no different from the Dongfang royal family. In fact, they are no different from ordinary people, strangers and plants. Qianma was the wife of the founding ancestor of the Purple Marquis family. Thousands of years ago, the founding ancestor held Qianma's hand and followed the founding ancestor of the Dongfang royal family to open up new territories. They conquered this beautiful land and became a legend. Qianma was obsessed with cultivation and did not like the affairs of the common people. She had always wanted to leave the common people and join a hidden sect. However, at that time the land had just been settled and she still needed to suppress it. Thus she guarded it for 500 years. When the Shen family's ancestor failed to break through to the Void Return realm, his lifespan was exhausted, and he passed away. Qianma finally severed her karma and left the Purple Marquis residence. She entered Buddhism and joined the Luoying sect. The Luoying sect was a hidden sect and walked the path of Buddhist cultivation. They loved all living things and treated everyone equally. They did not discriminate between family and distance. They were otherworldly and tranquil. Qianma considered herself a monk and cut off all contact with the Shen family. They had not contacted each other for more than 2,000 years. However, Qianma was indeed a talented person. She was not inferior to men and had once conquered the world. More than half of the Shen family's cultivation techniques were created by Qianma. She had also reached the Void Return realm 1,000 years ago. She was one of the top 3 leaders of the Luoying sect. Among all the leaders of the sacred grounds and divine sects, she could also be ranked in the top 20. Therefore, in order to commemorate Qianma's contribution to the Dongfang Empire and the Shen family, the Purple Marquis family had the surname Shen and Zi under the special permission of the royal family. This was also the reason why Xianxiao's surname was Zi. This kind of thing was unique in the entire Saint Origin world. It was also a legend and a legend. However, Qianma's 2 disciples won't just stand by and watch if I kill Xianxia in front of them. Jiang Tian flicked his fingers and thought to himself. Chapter 1955. The next moment, Xianxia asked excitedly, "May I know the names of the 2 fairies?" It was as if he had seen his saviors and relatives. After all, the Luoying sect was too strong, only slightly inferior to the ancient medicine hall. They had several real saints of Void Return which could completely suppress Jiang Tian. "My name is Hua Xiangrong. I'm one of the top 10 disciples of Saint Qianma," the older and charming woman said with a smile. "According to seniority I should call you ancestor. But you're so young and beautiful I really can't." Xianxia rolled his eyes and pretended to be shy and embarrassed. "Young Duke, you must be joking. I'm already 500 years old." Beauty is just a physical appearance not worth mentioning. This is Su Xiaotang. She's also my junior sister apprentice. Hua Xiangrong had been practicing abstinence for many years, so she couldn't stand this kind of teasing. She immediately blushed and covered her mouth to laugh. Xianxia's mouth was dry, and the pain of his father's death had long been forgotten. Another ancestor. Xianxia continued to tease and put on airs. With a troubled expression he said, but looking at his age he's clearly younger than me. He's more like a younger sister. Younger sister? You're so bold to say that. Offending your superiors and not following the rules. Su Xiaotang frowned and shouted, but anyone could hear the coquettish tone in her words. It didn't sound like she was talking to a junior, but a big brother she admired. She was 30% innocent, 30% coquettish and 30% seductive. We're here this time because our master heard that you're likely to reach the divine transformation realm, so he specially ordered us to take you to the sect to practice abstinence for a few days. Buddhism is peaceful, and many Buddhist chants can expel external demons and calm your mind, which will help you to increase the probability of reaching the divine transformation realm. After entering the sect, Su Xiaotang will guide you. You can call her junior martial aunt Su. Don't underestimate her, she's already at the middle stage of the divine transformation realm. Hua Xiangrong coughed and said in a dignified and noble manner. Seniors, thank you for your kindness in cultivating me, but Xianxia was deeply grateful. Then he feigned fear as he looked at Jiang Tian. Hua Xiangrong frowned, looked at Jiang Tian and said, Mister, who are you? Do you have any deep hatred with the Shen family? Why did you kill the Shen clan? Jiang Tian said casually, Shen Higu and his son Marquis of Purple Robe were ambitious, disloyal. They bullied their peers and stole the resources of their fiefs. They even colluded with a divinity transformation stage expert of the pantheon of demons in an attempt to assassinate Marquis Zhenyun Lin Hanqing. They wanted to raise a storm of blood on this land, overturn the royal family of the East, and claim the throne of the Imperium. As an elite disciple of a secluded sect, Hua Xiangrong was high and mighty. How could she care about a tiny place like the Eastern Empire? She did not know much about the conflict in the Eastern Empire, so she frowned when she heard this. She quickly communicated with Su Xiaotang and Xianxia using her consciousness. Especially after learning about Jiang Tian's achievements, Hua Xiangrong's face became even more dignified. After learning about the general situation, Hua Xiangrong's charming face became serious. Then she sighed and said, When I sweep the floor, I am afraid of hurting the lives of ants. Xianxia, the most beautiful thing in this world is life. It is the grass and the trees in this world. As for power and fame, they are all worldly possessions like floating clouds. You are blinded by greed and power. You can't see that power and wealth are poisonous snakes and fierce beasts that harm people. You pursued them and fought desperately for them. Now you have harmed your own lives. Do you know that you are wrong? Senior, I know that I am wrong. I have sinned deeply. Xianxia prostrated himself at her feet, hugging her slender, white feet. He rubbed his head against hers and pretended to cry bitterly. If I can survive this calamity, I will definitely make up for it properly and take it upon myself to save the world. Hua Xiangrong nodded with satisfaction. Then she bowed to Jiang Tian and said with a smile, Saint Xiqing, I am a woman with limited experience and don't know much about the disputes of the secular world. But since Lin Hanqing's family is still alive, they did not suffer much loss. Purple Marquis's plan did not succeed. You have killed Purple Marquis, which can be considered as revenge. As for Xianxia, you have seen that he already knows that he is wrong. Please be merciful. Sai, it is also because our Luoying sect is far away from the secular world. We do not teach the Purple Marquis's family and do not teach them. That is why they made a mistake that caused everlasting regret. Please hand him over to me and bring him back to the sect. Discipline him strictly every day and enlighten him. Let him have a clear heart and few desires, stand aloof from worldly affairs, and not dare to do evil again. You know, Purple Marquis and Xianxia planned this operation. How many people died? Mrs. Lin's family was wiped out. The Lin family also lost more than 1,200 cultivators, guards and soldiers. And when Maple City was attacked by the powerful demons, tens of thousands of people died. Are they not people in the eyes of your Luoying sect? Jiang Tian laughed coldly and questioned, just by strictly disciplining them, would these people have died for nothing? Hua Xiangrong sighed regretfully and said, "The dead are already gone and Ziyunshao is still a living creature. How can you harm a life just to appease the anger in your heart? Our Luoying sect will hold a water and land assembly here to release the wronged people and let them enter the pure land. Ziyunshao will also use his useful body to do good deeds and make up for his sins. Isn't this good to just kill him?" How do you know he will become a good person and do good deeds?" Jiang Tian was so angry that he laughed. He had never seen such a hypocritical pope. He seemed to be high and above the common people, but in fact he did not know the suffering of the common people. He seemed to love the world without boundaries, but in fact he was heartless, unprincipled, generous and fishing for fame. It was simply ridiculous. Bad people did all kinds of evil things, but as long as they put down the butcher's knife they could become Buddhas. One sentence, "I was wrong," could wash away all sins. If you have the guts when others kill your father, you can also say, "The dead are already gone, don't look into it." Yes. "Senior Jiang, I know I was wrong. Please let me off this time." Ziyunshao was like a pug lying at Hua Xiangrong's feet, his chin propped on the graceful lines of her legs. The hard stubble gave this woman a subtle touch. Her heart and calves were the same, numb like electricity, eroding her bones and her soul. "You're begging me?" Jiang Tian smiled faintly. "Yes. You also saw he's begging you and his attitude is so sincere. He's even crying. Obviously he has deeply realized his mistake. People should have the virtue of caring for all living things. Just forgive him this time, just let him go this time." Next to him, Su Xiaoteng also looked at Ziyunshao sympathetically. It would be a pity if such a beautiful young man was killed. He's begging me, so the decision is naturally mine. What if I don't agree? Jiang Tian said with a smile. Our Luoying sect benefits the common people and has the virtue of caring for all living things. If you don't want to kill him, then we can only act to uphold justice. Hua Xiangrong's pretty face turned cold. Chapter 1956. Su Xiaoteng puffed out her proud chest and said in a cold voice, "Ignorant fool. Do you think you are qualified to challenge the Luoying sect behind us just because you killed a few divine transformation realm mighty figures by chance?" Su Xiaoteng was at the middle stage of the divine transformation realm, while Hua Xiangrong was at the peak stage of the divine transformation realm. Their realms were far higher than Jiang Tian's. According to Jiang Tian's record, he could even kill a peerless demon dragon like the Decimating Abyss and easily suppress a giant like Niu Ben, who was almost a half-saint. Even if they joined forces, they were no match for Jiang Tian. However, what made them fearless was the sects behind them. The Luoying sect. Standing at the top of this continent, how many people dared to challenge them? How many people were qualified to challenge them? Benefit the common people and cherish the virtue of living? How dare you say that? Jiang Tian laughed again. His eyes were filled with disdain as he said with disdain, "Sects and forces enjoy the resources of the world and the support of all living beings. They should really maintain the peace of the world and benefit the common people. Look at your faces, hypocritical, greedy, arrogant, overbearing. I want to ask, when the residence of Marquis Zhenyun was killed, where were you? When Marquis Purple Robe took advantage of the good and bullied the good, where were you? When the pantheon of demons looted the cities and harassed the common people, blood flowed like rivers and people were plunged into misery and suffering, where were you? In fact, you did everything based on your likes and dislikes. Which one of you is worthy of being called a disciple of a sect?" Jiang Tian questioned. What did you say? The power of a sect is limited. How can we take care of everything? Besides, we are quiet and inactive. We believe in equality of all living beings." Su Xiaoteng was dumbfounded and speechless. Hua Xiangrong also looked embarrassed and angry. All living beings are equal and detached from worldly affairs. So, when evil people kill good people, you can turn a blind eye to it. Because the common people are neither good nor evil, neither far nor near, neither high nor low. In your heart they are all ants. The life and death of ants have nothing to do with you. However, when you see the ants you like being crushed to death, you will also save them. Jiang Tian mocked. Great love has no love, no distance, no difference in status and no difference in status. It treats all living beings in the world equally. You make it sound nice, but you can't do it. This young man has red lips and white teeth, you will like him. He will also lower himself, greatly satisfying your lofty and arrogant vanity. You will be more comfortable. I'm the same as you. Those who are kind to me are good and those who are evil are evil. But at the very least I'm not as hypocritical as you talking about the world and the common people. Humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires. It's normal to be close and distant. But we can't forget the most basic principles and morals just because of these feelings and distort the truth. Old man, you're spouting nonsense. Su Xiaotang snorted unreasonably. Hehe. Jiang Tian didn't pay any attention to him. He just raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. Ziyunshao felt as if the space around him had turned into a cage, trapping him within. Before he could let out a cry of surprise, even his physical body, nascent soul, and divine soul were directly crushed into meat paste by layers of void power and supreme domain. Jiang Xiqing, how dare you? Only a wisp of remnant thought was left floating in the air unwillingly. Some of them were in disbelief while others were horrified. Jiang Xiqing dared to not give face to Saint Qianma. Not giving face to Saint Qianma was not giving face to the Luoying sect. Not only did Ziyunshao not expect it, but in fact the Duke and Princess Mou also didn't expect it. Everyone's face was full of endless shock. Jiang Tian was too powerful and his will was as strong as steel. It seemed that even the gods and Buddhas in the sky couldn't stop him. Hua Xiangrong and Su Xiaotang were too slow to stop him. In other words, even if they joined forces to stop him in time, they might not be able to stop Jiang Tian at all. Hua Xiangrong's heart was in turmoil and anger appeared in her eyes. She said coldly, "Fellow cultivator Jiang, you are too cruel. You have no mercy at all. Ziyunshao has passed away. I will do a few more water and land rituals for him and recite a few more scriptures to release his soul from purgatory. In the future, if I do good deeds, I can make up for this killing. Do you have the same mercy?" Jiang Tian chuckled and replied with their words just now. Hua Xiangrong was so angry that her pink face turned pale. For a moment she was tongue-tied and speechless. "How dare you kill in front of the disciples of our Luoying sect?" Su Xiaotang was so angry that her full chest was violently shaking, and a dazzling wave was rippling. A pair of clear and beautiful eyes stared at Jiang Tian angrily. She waved her right hand and took out a bronze mirror shining with golden light, as if she was about to attack. "Fellow cultivator Su, are you going to punish me or even kill me? Have you forgotten what you just said? How can you take revenge on a fresh life for the dead? His life is a life. Could it be that in your eyes my life is not a life?" Jiang Tian said with a smile. "Fellow cultivator Jiang, you are too murderous and like to use violence to curb violence. You'd better go back to the Luoying sect with me and reflect on your mistakes for 100 years. You can feel the natural beauty of flowers and plants and purify your killing intent and devil chi so as to avoid mental disorder and making a big mistake that will endanger the world. By then it will be too late to regret." Hua Xiangrong gently pressed her right hand to stop Su Xiaotang, and then she chanted Buddha's name and said in a low voice, "Fellow cultivator Hua, you are wrong." Jiang Tian shook his head and smiled. He waved his sleeve and Lin Yang, the little princess, and many palace guards flew out of his sleeve and landed on the city wall. He said calmly, "Look how many people have I saved. If I hadn't arrived in time, Marquis Purple Robe would have rebelled, and no one in the elder princess's palace would be left alive." He put his left hand behind his back and raised his right hand to point at the army formations. His posture was indescribably carefree and he said with a leisurely smile, "If I hadn't exposed the truth that Marquis Purple Robe colluded with the pantheon of demons, a war would have broken out. These hundreds of thousands of people in the army formations would have been reduced to bones and dust, and many orphans and widows would have been left behind. As the saying goes, saving a life is better than building a 7-floor pagoda. I have saved so many people and I don't know how many pagodas are behind me to dispel my killing intent. Why would I need to face the wall?" Jiang Tian was unperturbed, his expression was that of a charlatan, but to the crowd his words were indeed reasonable. Jiang Tian's strength was comparable to that of a saint of void return, and he could fight head-on with Marquis Purple Robe and the army of the southern feudal lords. However, Jiang Tian instead earnestly advised, exposing the scheme within, all for the sake of saving these cultivator soldiers, avoiding unnecessary casualties. And Jiang Tian did do it. "You are twisting words and forcing logic." Su Xiaotang's pretty face turned cold. She raised her right hand, and the mirror spun like a flying saucer, broke through the space at an unparalleled speed, and covered Jiang Tian's head at an incredible angle. The bone-melting earth mirror. Seeing this treasure, many people exclaimed and their faces changed drastically. Chapter 1957. The hidden sects were superior and they didn't care about the affairs of the mortal world. But the mortal world was more cautious when it came to the hidden sections. They studied and studied them carefully, both to learn and to be cautious. That mirror was a sacred weapon, the Dharma treasure that Zhi Qianmo used to become famous. Saint Qianmo was worried that her 2 disciples wouldn't have enough experience, so she lent it to Su Xiaotang. That treasure was both offensive and defensive. It was powerful and unpredictable. Once it shone, Dharma laws would be melted and grand Daoists would be annihilated. Both the deities and their bodies would be shattered. Countless soul formation grand cultivators had died under that mirror in the past thousands of years. Even saints would have to be careful when they saw it. That woman is so vicious. Brother Jiang, you must be careful. Grand Princess Mou clenched her teeth and cried out in alarm. Her beautiful face turned pale as she wiped her sweat for Jiang Tian. Even though Jiang Tian was powerful, that treasure was also quite powerful. A battle between cultivators was ever-changing. A small mistake could lead to a great loss. No matter how powerful you were, you could still die when you encountered a powerful Dharma treasure and tricky attacks. In the blink of an eye, the bone-transforming earth mirror arrived above Jiang Tian. Go to hell, you ant. With a hateful roar, Su Xiaotang formed a hand seal and activated the treasure. On the other hand, this treasure suddenly emitted millions upon millions of strands of light. It was gorgeous, resplendent, and filled with danger. The dazzling light made the real sun in the sky lose its splendor. There seemed to be a sun rising in the sky. The light was so bright that everyone was blinded for a moment, and even their immortal will was cut off. Many soldiers immediately raised shields that were at the level of a true artifact. They connected together, and some were even Dao artifacts to resist the terrifying light. The many sharp beams of light in the mirror seemed material, incomparably sharp. They cut through the laws, pierced through the great Dao, and tore through space. When they shone down, they wanted to completely melt Jiang Tian. In just the blink of an eye, the true treasures and even Dao treasures raised by the army began to crack under the terrifying killing intent. Some even melted, and all of their magic power dissipated. Ah! Retreat! Ouch! Help! Under the furious cries of the dukes and generals, the army retreated like a tide, panicking like stray dogs. However, the mirror was too powerful and Su Xiaotang's control was not good enough. She could not attack accurately and the shockwaves were too wide. In an instant, tens of thousands of innocent people were implicated and died with deep unwillingness and fear. Many people's eyes were still wide open before they were annihilated, and their faces were still filled with astonishment. It was as if he couldn't believe that he had actually died at the hands of a disciple of the Luoying sect, who claimed to be a righteous sect and had saved the world. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. No one can escape from this mirror alive. However, at this moment Su Xiaotang did not notice the deaths of these people. Her eyes were only fixed on Jiang Tian, who was about to be obliterated. Her lips curled into a maniacal smile. He only felt that he was extremely satisfied and delighted. Which cultivator didn't want to kill? With the dragon-slaying skill in his hands, how could his killing intent not be aroused? How many powerful cultivators didn't want to humiliate others? The rules of the sect were strict, and Saint Qianmo's requirements for them were also extremely strict. They were not allowed to kill at will. This made Su Xiaotang even more depressed. All day long she wanted to kill tens of thousands of people to vent her anger. However, if they wanted to kill people, they had to have a good reason and occupy the moral high ground. Now she felt that she occupied a very high moral high ground. Very righteous. Even if Saint Qianmo knew all this, she would not blame herself. Hua Xiangrong should be the same. Harming the innocent and treating human lives like grass. This is true love, this is true of a righteous sect. Ba. A trace of coldness flashed across Jiang Tian's eyes when he saw this scene. His expression was filled with disdain. A 30-foot-tall divine plate appeared behind him, and the vermilion bird divine rule shot out. The light and heat contained within the Li fire essence was actually even more gorgeous and blazing than the light of the mirror. It caused the light to dim and one could clearly see the complicated and mysterious symbols on it. Oh no! Junior sister, quickly take back the mirror. Feeling that the divine rule released by Jiang Tian was even more tenacious and condensed than the Dharma contained in the mirror, Hua Xiangrong turned pale and shouted to remind her. Take it back. Su Xiaotang did not dare to be negligent. She quickly made a gesture and wanted to take back the mirror. However, her speed was still far too inferior compared to Jiang Tian's. As Jiang Tian waved his fingers, the vermilion bird divine rule drew a strange curve like the curve in Tai Chi and accurately cut through the middle of the mirror. There was a clang. A sharp sound that made one's teeth ache. The treasure mirror was split in half from the middle. Numerous laws collapsed and scattered down millions of flames. It was like a meteor falling from the heavens. The true spirit of the fire phoenix within let out a sorrowful cry before it was brutally killed. What? His strength is so powerful. This mirror is a magic treasure that Saint Qianma had refined and used before. Everyone was shocked and couldn't believe it. The Dharma refined by Saint Qianma was no match for the power of his finger and palm. But Hua Xiangrong was more shocked. She was so scared that her legs were trembling, and her heart almost jumped out of her throat. It was too horrible. It could be said that since she started her cultivation she had never met such a horrible cultivator. She had never even heard of such a horrible cultivator. The reason why refining weapons was a great knowledge was that the magic treasures refined by cultivators were generally more powerful than their own full-strength attack. The Dharma and magic skills that cultivators refined into magic treasures were all refined over a long period of time. Naturally, they were more condensed and terrifying. Although this mirror was a holy weapon used by Saint Qianma in the early days and was no longer used as a memorial, its attack was more powerful than the strength of an ordinary saint. It was extremely terrifying. However, it was shattered by the Dharma that Jiang Tian casually threw out. His strength was simply incredible. Compared with Jiang Tian, the so-called geniuses in the Holy Lands and Holy Clans were simply dregs. Junior sister apprentice, this is bad. We underestimated this person. Hua Xiangrong's heart was filled with regret. Her heart fell into the nine nether abyss. She felt cold all over and was extremely scared. When she heard about Jiang Tian's powerful battle record, although she was very shocked, she did not absolutely recognize Jiang Tian's strength. Although the abyss demon dragon was fierce in the ancient times, after all, it had not appeared in the world for thousands of years. No one knew its real strength. Perhaps it had been tortured to death by the demon imprisoning fairy jar. She also noticed a detail that was, before Jiang Tian attacked, the Nine Mysteries sect had been fighting fiercely with Niuben and others for a long time. Therefore she was more inclined to believe that the Nine Mysteries sect severely injured Niuben, and Jiang Tian took advantage of it. In other words, the Nine Mysteries sect killed Niuben, and Jiang Tian just caught Niuben's severely injured god. In order to deter neighboring countries and reclusive sects, or to boost the morale of their own country, the secular empire often exaggerated and bluffed. Hua Xiangrong thought that Jiang Tian was the idol deliberately created by the empire. As for his real strength, it was only 1/10. She thought so and denied Jiang Tian's strength. Of course she had her reasons. First, Jiang Tian was too young. At Jiang Tian's age it was good enough that he could reach the elixir realm. Jiang Tian reached the Yuaning realm too quickly, which meant that his foundation was very unstable and the grade of his Yuaning realm was not high. Second, Jiang Tian was a rogue cultivator from an extragalactic galaxy. In a remote place, the inheritance of cultivation methods had always been inferior. But at this moment she realized that the many rumors about Jiang Tian were absolutely true. Jiang Tian was even more powerful than the rumors. Killing them was just a snap of his fingers. He even had the qualification to challenge the Holy Lands and Holy Clans. Chapter 1958. However, Su Xiaotang did not realize the deep meaning of Hua Xiangrong's words. When she saw her master's precious treasure was broken, she was shocked, scared, and angry. Her plump chest heaved violently and she raised her trembling hand, pointed at Jiang Tian and shouted, You dare to break my master's magic weapon. My master will punish me severely. You're courting death. Don't worry, you won't be punished. Jiang Tian smiled lightly. With a flash he appeared beside Su Xiaotang like a ghost. What are you talking about? Why won't I be punished? Unless you accompany me to the sect and have a good talk with my master. Su Xiaotang's tone suddenly softened. She lowered her head and blushed, looking a little bashful. Oh no. Why did my junior sister apprentice fall in love with Jiang Xiqing at this time? He is a giant with unfathomable magical power, enough to destroy the world and enough to massacre the Holy Land. He is a fierce man who kills without blinking and whose Taoist heart is as hard as iron. Hua Xiangrong was stunned. Indeed, Hua Xiangrong was right. At this time Su Xiaotang actually had an idea about Zhang Tian and wanted to take Zhang Tian to the sect. When she first saw Zhang Tian, although he was extremely handsome, his hair was gray, his eyes were gloomy and sad, and his temperament was empty. He was not the kind of fresh young man full of vitality like the spring sunshine, so she did not take him seriously. But at this moment, when she was close to Zhang Tian, she found that Zhang Tian had a complex and moving temperament. Sometimes he felt as if Zhang Tian had gone through the sorrows of the mortal world and regained his calm state of mind. He had seen through the truth of the sea of bitterness in life and still loved life. Sometimes he was like a lofty immortal god that stood above the myriad of worlds and looked down on the billions of living beings. He was incomparably grand, noble, and unapproachable. Suddenly he felt as if Zhang Tian was cruel, despicable, suspicious, greedy, lecherous. All sorts of negative traits, but they were incomparably real and filled with a primitive and wild charm. This complex temperament made her addicted. This strange charm made her heart beat faster. In a short period of time she had already planned everything out. Zhang Tian was able to break the mirror with his finger, so he was definitely a genius among geniuses. His value was much higher than the mirror. Saint Qianma would definitely take him in as a disciple. Zhang Tian had killed her descendants and relatives. Logically speaking, she was bound to take revenge. However, Qianma was not an ordinary person. Saint Qianma was different from these people who were just bluffing. She had truly cultivated love with impartiality to the extreme. Love was like having no love, no relatives, no friends, no family, no friends. She was merciful and transcended the mortal world. He had long since severed his karma and ended his mortal bonds. Therefore Saint Qianma would not blame Zhang Tian for killing the Purple Marquise branch. Once Zhang Tian joined the Luoying sect, she would be able to accompany him every day in the name of senior sister and guide him. With her beauty and gentleness, Zhang Tian would probably not be able to resist and would definitely become her Dao companion. Zhang Tian was extremely talented and might even become a sect master in the future. Wouldn't she be the sect master's wife then? Accompany your mother. How ridiculous. Zhang Tian complained bitterly and his brows furrowed. He did not know that Su Xiaotang had thought of so many things in an instant. He only felt that her expression was strange and thought that she had some tricks up her sleeve. However, even if she did, Zhang Tian was not afraid at all. After all, his strength was there. In a flash, Zhang Tian's right hand shot out like lightning and grabbed the top of this woman's head. His 5 fingers were like sharp steel hooks and instantly pierced through her skull. Ah! Su Xiaotang was dumbfounded. Endless shock and fear appeared on her pretty face. She never would have thought that Zhang Tian would actually be so unromantic, completely unmoved by her beauty and looks. She also did not expect that Zhang Tian would be so ruthless and kill her without mercy. Su Xiaotang opened her mouth and screamed. Her pretty face was distorted and twitching. Her curvaceous body trembled crazily as if she had been struck by lightning. But she could not struggle. The domain created by Zhang Tian's supreme divine law was incomparably solid. Not only was she unable to break free, but even Hua Xiangrong's physical body and dharma power were all imprisoned, unable to lend a helping hand. If I kill you, you will not be punished by your master. Zhang Tian's eyes were deep and cold, with a cold light without a trace of emotion. Under the incredulous gaze of everyone, he grabbed her head and lifted it up unceremoniously. With a swish, blood splashed. The woman's spine, together with the divine treasure, was pulled out of her body. Ah! Zhang Xichen, you are so vicious. The vitality of cultivators was far more vigorous than that of ordinary people, not to mention that Su Xiaotang was a mighty figure in the god transformation realm. Her vitality was extremely tenacious and her body did not die on the spot. Blood tears rolled down her beautiful eyes, and her pretty face was filled with endless fear and trembling. It was as if she was looking at a devil. A terrible devil who was cruel, bloodthirsty, indifferent, and took pleasure in killing, destruction, and degeneration. Go to hell. Without saying a word, Zhang Tian grabbed with his right hand, and that beautiful head shattered like a watermelon. Red and white things splashed in the air like bright fireworks blooming, but also like an abstract painting that was randomly drawn, spreading out in the air. The Dharma surged, spreading along the spine and strangling. The next moment her divine treasure were also shattered. Bang! Jiang Tian kicked her body away like a football. He tilted his head slightly and his face was still as calm as still water. He looked at Hua Xiangrong and said in a lazy tone, "If your master Saint Qianmo or the Luoying sect want to avenge this disciple, just come to me. I'll be waiting." Seeing that Jiang Tian killed Su Xiaotang, Hua Xiangrong still wanted to ask him a few questions. Was he not afraid of the revenge of the sect behind him? However, after hearing Jiang Tian's words, she also swallowed the words on the tip of her tongue. She did not dare to say anything. She bowed deeply and said, "I know. I'll take my leave now." "Jiang Xiqing, you're in trouble." It was not until this moment that Elder Princess Mou stopped and said gloomily, "Don't be afraid." Jiang Tian smiled indifferently and was not afraid. "Since you're not afraid, why don't you eliminate the source of trouble?" Looking at the escaping light that was gradually disappearing, Elder Princess Mou suddenly showed a trace of fierceness on her face. She was indeed the goddess of war of the empire. She was resolute and decisive. It's useful. Sometimes an enemy is also useful. Jiang Tian smiled again, looking calm and unperturbed. Maple City. Palaces and houses collapsed. There were huge gully-like cracks on the ground. It was a mess. Many defensive arrays were all broken. In the air, there were still traces of the demon clan's invasion and the laws of war. Light and shadow filled the air and thunder exploded. There was a great danger in the magnificence. However, armies had been stationed here. Sabers, spears, swords and halberds were scattered everywhere, and the murderous aura was soaring to the sky. Even in the Red Rock Basin and Xinji Forest, there were many armies from the royal family's direct descendants and the armies of the feudal lords who supported the royal family. In the sky there were also some cultivators holding magic weapons, eliminating or absorbing the remaining laws. There were also cultivators who were proficient in elixirs and healing methods, treating those seriously injured cultivators and mortals. This was Crown Prince Dongfang Ding, who was ordered by the emperor to fight Marquis Zishan. The army was stationed in Maple City. On the site of the mansion of Marquis Zhenyin, which had been razed to the ground, a brand new mansion had been built by the royal craftsmen. Moreover, the area was 3 times larger than the original. It was now used as a temporary command post for the army. After that, it would be the new mansion of Marquis Zhenyin. "Brother, you're so talented. You deserve to be the first talent of the empire." When Dongfang Li hurried over and saw such a scene, he could not help but sigh with emotion. Chapter 1959. The cultivators built defensive divine arrays, distributed resources, provided disaster relief, healed the wounded and comforted the poor. The cultivators of the upper echelons mobilized the troops and arranged the troops in formations. Everything was done in an orderly manner. Moreover, the cultivator army was strictly disciplined and showed no signs of interfering with the secular world. In particular, among the vassals who came to rescue the king, not only was there the Duke of Nanhe and Fang Jinlong who were originally loyal to the empire, but there were also the Duke of Eastern Gorge, the Duke of Northern Gorge and the Duke of Western Ridge. Especially the Duke of Eastern Gorge, who had been seriously injured in the battle on Hundred Flowers Peak a few days ago. Even though he had not recovered from his injuries, he still came with his troops. Dongfang Li sighed at his own inferiority. Dongfang Ding's ability was indeed far superior to his. If it wasn't for Mr. Zhang's sudden appearance, Big Brother would be the #1 genius of the empire. No one could suppress him. As Dongfang Li sighed with emotion, he also made some corrections in his heart. After reporting, Dongfang Li also came to a magnificent hall. He saw Dongfang Ding, who was surrounded by several vassals, standing in front of a 1,000 miles water mirror with his hands behind his back. He was watching intently without blinking. On the surface of the water mirror, Jiang Tian's every move was displayed down to the tiniest detail. Mr. Jiang is facing an army of 100,000 alone? Seeing this scene, Dongfang Li's eyes were filled with shock and worry. He was worried for Jiang Tian. "Brother, you're here?" Dongfang Ding looked at him with a smile and then smiled helplessly. Mr. Jiang is an expert. After meeting up with Duke Nan, he did not wait for me and the vassals to join up and went straight to Jianghan City. I hope he can turn the misfortune into a blessing and counterattack. Mr. Jiang's strength is not to be underestimated. I think he is not afraid of Purple Marquis and the others. Dongfang Li said with a forced smile, but his heart was uneasy and did not have much confidence. Facing such a vast and surging battle formation alone, even if Zhang Tian really had the strength of a Void Return Saint, his chances of winning were slim. He is a rogue cultivator from outside the river and has not been in Saint Origin World for long. He probably does not know the terror of the Empire's battle formation. Our cultivations are far inferior to the Sacred Grounds Divine Sect. If we don't have a battle formation that gathers the strength of all living beings, how can we stand on this land and maintain our independence? If it wasn't for the power of the battle formation, we would have already become slaves of the Divine Sect. In fact, he was not the only one. Including Dongfang Ding and the four dukes, all the nobles and officials present felt that Zhang Tian's actions were too rash, too impetuous and too arrogant. They would most likely be beaten to a pulp by the battle formation. So that Demon Emperor Han Guang is actually Dongfang Jia. Mr. Jiang actually captured Niu Ben's god alive and dug out such a shocking secret. He was obstinate and self-opinionated, unkind and unkind. The vassals had made great contributions to the establishment and development of the empire, but he went on a crusade against them, stirring up a storm of blood and plunging the people into misery and suffering. How foolish. He's not muddle-headed. He's ambitious, and his ambition has devoured his conscience. He caused chaos in the world. In the end, he himself was defeated like a landslide. He fled in panic and fell into the abyss. He allied himself with the demon race and became the laughingstock of the world. Serves him right. However, after hearing the secret from Zhang Tian's mouth, the vassals were all shocked. Then they began to ridicule him in a strange manner. So the Demon Emperor Palace Lord Han Guang was the late emperor. Dongfang Ding sighed and his expression changed rapidly. In the end, he fell into silence and indifference. No one knew what he was thinking. It's actually Dongfang Jia. The county system is far better than the feudal system. It's just that he was too hasty back then and didn't have the conditions. Dongfang Li sighed regretfully in his heart. However, they did not expect that Zhang Tian would disintegrate Purple Marquis's camp with just a few words. It could even be said that even the battle formation of Jianghan City, the foundation of Purple Marquis's rebel army, was disintegrated. In the end, even Purple Marquis himself knelt down and surrendered without a fight. Subduing the enemy without a fight, amazing. Mr. Jiang is mighty. An eternal prodigy. With his glib tongue he quelled a war and saved millions of people. Saved the living beings of the world from suffering. The soldiers under the vassals are also the good men of the empire. If this fierce battle really breaks out, who knows how many people will die? Won't it cause pain to those close to you and delight your enemies? Won't it cause the empire to decline and damage its lifeline? Mr. Zhang's ability is far beyond ours. We can only look up to him and worship him. Cries of surprise sounded one after another. Everyone was shocked and looked at the scene in the water mirror with ecstasy. Not all the vassals were staunch rebels like Purple Marquis, who were determined to overthrow the imperial power. Although there was a conflict between the imperial power and the vassals, they understood the principle that without the skin, the hair would not be able to attach. If a civil war broke out, many neighboring countries and even sects would want to destroy the Eastern Empire and get a share of the pie. If the country was ruined, the vassals' fiefs and titles would be like bubbles in their dreams. They would have no foundation at all. Mr. Jiang is a genius. As expected of a man with a great reputation. Even Dongfang Ding was impressed. This battle is really beautiful. We should hold a grand ceremony and celebrate with the whole country. However, when Zhang Tian was about to raise his hand to kill Zi Yunxiao, when everyone thought that the battle was about to come to an end and a perfect end, to everyone's surprise, Hua Xiangrong and the other girl from the Luoying sect suddenly appeared. Side issues were arising. That's the Luoying sect. Mr. Jiang, you must not act rashly. After figuring out the other party's identity, Dongfang Ding was also shocked. The Luoying sect was one of the top holy sects and he did not want to offend them at all. He hurriedly transmitted a message to Zhang Tian with a Dharma artifact, hoping that Zhang Tian would stop. When Fang Jinlong met up with Zhang Tian immediately said that he wanted to go to Jianghan City to kill Purple Marquis. Although Fang Jinlong felt that it was inappropriate, Zhang Tian's strength was amazing, and he could be promoted to state preceptor, which was second only to the emperor. Therefore he did not dare to stop him. However, Fang Jinlong also gave Zhang Tian a Dharma artifact to make it easier to communicate. However, Jiang Tian turned a deaf ear to Dongfang Ding's warning. At one point, Dongfang Ding suspected that the Dharma artifact was broken. Under Dongfang Ding's repeated persuasion, Jiang Tian also unceremoniously killed Su Xiaotang with a palm. Dongfang Ding's face was pale and cold sweat poured down. He stared at the scene in the water mirror and almost fell to the ground. He also never expected that Jiang Tian would be so crazy that he would not hesitate to offend one of the top holy sects on the continent to kill an insignificant person. This was simply too crazy and unreasonable. This is not my empire's lucky star but a jinx. Dongfang Ding was soaked in cold sweat, and the corners of his eyes trembled as he sighed helplessly. Chapter 1960. The empire had a large array to protect the city and country, as well as a battle array that gathered the strength of the common people. This was to keep the experts of the hidden sects in check and prevent them from provoking the country and affecting the prestige of the imperial family. But what if they sneaked in and assassinated? There was simply no one who could withstand it. Even if it was to assassinate an emperor, the success rate was extremely high. Originally, Dongfang Ding thought highly of Jiang Tian, and even wanted to make him the imperial preceptor. But now he wanted nothing more than to avoid Jiang Tian like he was a viper. He wanted to stay as far away from Jiang Tian as possible. No, he still has some value. We can use him to intimidate the feudal lords and collect their tributes to make up for the empty treasury. We can also use him to destroy the Yao race. We can even weaken the feudal lords and abolish the feudal system. Dongfang Ding forced himself to calm down and straightened his clothes. He glanced at the stunned feudal lords and smiled. Why are all of you so afraid? Imperial advisor has killed the Purple Marquis and quelled the rebellion. That is great news. Why don't we go and welcome him? Yes. We will set out immediately to welcome the new imperial advisor. The feudal lords were all shrewd people. Seeing that Dongfang Ding didn't mention anything about Su Xiaotang's death, they understood that if one day the Luo Ying sect asked about it, Dongfang Ding would pretend to know nothing about it and push all responsibility away. But a trace of worry appeared on Fang Jinlong's face. Although the Purple Marquis had been quelled, the empire's peace would not last for long. The Yao race and feudal lords were Dongfang Ding's mortal enemies. Moreover, Dongfang Ding was extremely good at manipulating people. He would probably use Jiang Xiqing as a killing knife to cut off his own obstacles. Although Fang Jinlong had only met Jiang Tian once, after understanding some of Jiang Tian's deeds, he had a very good impression of Jiang Tian. In fact, with Jiang Tian's strength, even if he went to the Holy Land Divine Sect, he could become an elder and a giant. In terms of cultivation resources, the Holy Land Divine Sect definitely surpassed the secular imperial dynasty. But Jiang Tian stayed in the Jinyuan Marquis residence and fought for the Lin clan. This was too righteous. Most importantly, Fang Jinlong was the same as Lin Hanqing. Although he was a duke, he was not selfish and was loyal to the dynasty and empire. Seeing that Jiang Tian had quelled the flames of war and saved the people of the empire from suffering, he admired Jiang Tian even more. When Dongfang Ding respectfully welcomed Jiang Tian, it was an unprecedentedly grand occasion. The soaring heavenly horses pulled the chariot, forming a long line in the sky. The imperial canopy was like the clouds and the treasure light was like the stars. The welcoming party was several thousand meters long. Junior Dongfang Ding welcomes the imperial advisor, Mr. Jiang Xiqing. Thank you, sir, for pacifying the rebels, protecting the country, reversing the collapse of the sky and saving millions of people from the fire and water. Facing Jiang Tian from afar, Dongfang Ding bowed deeply and reverently, carrying out the etiquette of a disciple, like a believer meeting a god. He was also holding a large seal in his hands and a bright yellow triangular flag in his hands. The seal of the imperial protector. The flag of the state protector. It represented the supreme authority. His status and power were higher than the many princes and ministers, the 4 dukes and even the grand tutor of the crown prince. He was second only to the emperor of a country. In other words, even the crown prince and princess would have to bow respectfully when they saw him, as if he was their teacher. The imperial advisor was on the same level as the emperor. He was truly second only to one person and above millions. Bestow the main city of Jianghan City and 10 other cities, as well as the subsidiary territories, as the imperial advisor's fief. Bestow the imperial garden and the overlooking river residence as the imperial advisor's residence. In addition, there were also ceremonial officials holding the title deeds of the fief, the imperial advisor's residence, and the crystal bills in their hands, loudly announcing the summons. The amount of the crystal bills was extremely terrifying. It was the amount of the imperial treasury's 10 years of expenditure, but it was all given to Zhou Xian. The size of the fief was even more terrifying. The fiefs of the Purple Marquis Zhou Xian Marquis of Xianxia, and the others were all counted as Zhou Xian's. The overlooking river residence was the Crown Prince's residence, occupying a spiritual vein. Although it was not as good as the imperial palace, it was definitely far better than the residences of the various dukes. Because of that, everyone was stunned by the scene before them. The Crown Prince is actually being saluted as a disciple. Has he been promoted to the imperial advisor? The Crown Prince said it in public. This is equivalent to announcing it to the world. What an honor this is. Also, the overlooking river residence was originally the Crown Prince's private property, right? It is his favorite. It is said that he had accumulated and built it for 50 years. I don't know how many array masters, rune masters, and skilled craftsmen had spent endless efforts to complete it. And now he has bestowed it to Jiang Xiqing. Everyone could not believe it. They sighed and were extremely envious. The Crown Prince really knows how to win people's hearts. Even Fang Jinlong was stunned as if he had fallen into a dream. He knew that the Crown Prince was good at winning people's hearts, but he did not expect him to spend so much. Especially the overlooking river county, which was elegant and beautiful, like a celestial palace, extremely exquisite. Dongfang Ding loved it to the extreme, but he was willing to part with it. You know what? Jiang Xiqing is a mighty figure of our Black Sun sector. An itinerant cultivator from outside the Milky Way galaxy defending the position of imperial advisor. This is the first time a new world has been created. In the crowd, Guochuandong was so excited that all the fat on his body trembled. He was so proud that tears flowed down his cheeks as he spoke to the guests of the Lin family. He had never felt so proud in his life. In fact, he was not even this excited when he ascended to the nascent soul stage and defended the position of Heavenly Lord in his homeland. Jiang Tian was slightly taken aback. He did not expect Dongfang Ding to still be willing to rope him in after he had killed Su Xiaotang of the Luoying sect. He had killed Su Xiaotang because he felt that his dead self Jiang Tian had made too much of a fuss and was too famous. It was not good for him to experience the world of mortals, and it was not good for him to avoid being observed by the giants of the 9 heavens. Other than the Purple Marquis, Lin Hanqing no longer had any enemies in front of him. Therefore Jiang Tian wanted to leave. He wanted to use another identity to start a new life. Therefore he wanted to kill Su Xiaotang so that the shrewd Crown Prince Dongfang Ding would give up on trying to rope him in. This result was very surprising to him. Crown Prince Dongfang Ding was still unwilling to give up. However, for an old monster like Jiang Tian who had lived 2 lives, there was nothing he had not seen before. He would deal with whatever came his way. You have a good plan. I have a wall ladder. I can fight. No matter how many schemes you have, it is useless. The initiative will always be in my hands. Therefore, after a slight surprise, Jiang Tian immediately regained his composure. He supported Dongfang Ding with his hands from afar and said with a smile, "You're right. Thank you, Your Majesty and Crown Prince, for your kindness. Although I am an itinerant cultivator outside the river, I do not dare to forget the country. Since I have come to live in the Empire, I should treat this place as my second home. Isn't it right for cultivators to fight for their homeland? Do not dare to forget the country? Sir, your words are not only good, but also thought-provoking." On the side, eldest Princess Mou looked at Jiang Tian in a daze and could not help but sigh with emotion. It would be impolite to refuse. Jiang Tian also accepted the many rewards calmly. This time, Jiang Tian quelled the rebellion of the southern vassals led by the Purple Marquis without bloodshed. He was conferred the position of imperial advisor, and his name shook the world and the entire Eastern Empire. Chapter 1961. In the distance, Lin Hanqing was regretful and sighed, "Alas. Mr. Jiang is a genius like a true dragon of the 9th heaven. How can he be trapped in the shallows for a long time? It's definitely not something my small Lin family can accommodate." The imperial preceptor was a member of the royal family. A duke could not be ordered around at will. To put it bluntly, even if Lin Hanqing faced any danger in the future, he could not ask Jiang Tian for help. Otherwise it would be breaking the rules. Thinking of this, he also lamented his misfortune and angrily looked at Lin Dai, next to him, and said, "If you had agreed to that marriage back then, Mr. Jiang would be able to protect my family. Mr. Jiang will be able to stay in the family forever. In other words, he will protect the Lin family forever. After all, the law of the country does not destroy family ties." But no. Dai, it's a pity that you don't have this fortune. Lin Yang shook his head and sighed. Hearing this, the regret in Lin Dai's heart grew stronger. How could she imagine that the seemingly ordinary, unremarkable, and even a little shabby rogue cultivator from outside the river, a mere nascent soul cultivator, would obtain today's status and glory? It was simply unbelievable. Just like what her father said, if she had married Jiang Tian back then, what kind of glory would it be? What kind of glory would the Lin family be? At least in the Eastern Empire, the dignified Lin family of the Marquis Yuan's residence was simply above everyone else. However, thinking of how Jiang Tian slapped and reprimanded her on the 100 Flowers Peak, Lin Dai's heart was filled with resentment and gloated. Alas, although you have the strength of a saint, you are not the top after all. You still can't compare to those holy lands. You are arrogant and unscrupulous, even daring to kill people from the Luoying sect. I'm afraid the Luoying sect's revenge will come soon. In the cultivation country, everything was practical. The imperial preceptor's conferring ceremony was simple and did not have many complicated formalities. It ended quickly. However, when the ceremony ended, Jiang Tian suddenly turned his head to look at eldest Princess Mou and said, "Hun Yo, do you remember Sir God Qiling? One of the 4 great guardians of the Demon King Palace." Tigress. Hearing this name, the Crown Prince, Second Prince, and Little Princess were all dumbfounded. Princess Mou was so angry that her face turned red and she clenched her teeth. She was the Princess Royal, the goddess of war of the empire. She was actually called Tigress? Where was the dignity of the royal family? Jiang Tian was too arrogant. However, eldest Princess Mou was unable to get angry. Not to mention that Jiang Tian had killed the Marquis of Purple Robe, quelled the rebellion of the southern vassals, and avoided a great war. Just the fact that Jiang Tian had taught her the 12 magical sounds of Longhuan and guided her cultivation made her feel that she owed Jiang Tian too much. This anger disappeared in a flash. Eldest Princess Mou also quickly noticed Jiang Tian's words. Her pretty eyebrows were knitted together as though she was puzzled. She said, "I seem to feel that this person seems to have interacted with me before. However, my memory is becoming increasingly blurry. It seems real and illusory. I am unable to recall it." It was a very strange feeling. My memories are also in a mess. I feel that Sir God Qiling has a great relationship with me. However, who is he? Sir God Nyoben's deity also muttered to himself. He was hidden in the depths of Jiang Tian's sea of consciousness and was suppressed by the demon god of prison suppressing divine soul. He was like a little white rabbit under the huge claws of a ferocious tiger. He had no power to struggle and could be annihilated or swallowed at any time. That's right. Jiang Tian chuckled and did not explain further. However, his eyes gradually grew solemn. This was the power of history's correction. Jiang Tian used the law of time in the chaotic universe to perform the Fist of Time. The punch split the time barrier and pierced through the past, present, and future. He went back to the River of Time to when Sir God Qiling was weak and killed him with his sword. This was equivalent to changing history. From that moment onwards, Sir God Qiling no longer existed in this space-time. It was equivalent to Jiang Tian going back to the past and changing history. Time was like a long river. It would not stop because of the lack of a wave. It continued to flow forward. However, the River of Time had a natural power of washing, restraining, and correction. Washing and restraining made it extremely difficult to stop the action of going back to time. When a person was in the River of Time, he would be washed by time and decline uncontrollably. Heaven and earth were predestined. Even deities, Buddhas, deities, and saints had to worry about their lifespan. Although they had a lifespan of thousands of years or even longer, they could not escape death. In the universe, in the vast Milky Way, there were countless talented big shots who had exhausted their minds to come up with all kinds of wonderful methods such as prolonging life, resurrection, possession, God Dao, and Ghost Dao. However, it was a pity that they were only useful for a short period of time. They could not escape from heaven and earth's predestined fate. They were washed by time, decayed, turned into dust, and returned to nothingness. Going back to the past was like rowing a boat against the current. The washing of time was more than 10 times or 100 times more than the river of time. That was the reason why Zhang Tian could only stay in the 3,000 years for 3 seconds. Even if he had a divine body of chaos, he could not take it. Space was like a riverbank and time was like a long river. The power of correction was the power of heaven and earth. In order to maintain the existing historical path and logic, it had modified space and existence. It had completely removed Sir God Qi-Ling from this world. All traces were erased, including the memories in everyone's mind. The universe is chaotic. Everything is impermanent. The fist of time can go back to the past and affect the future. I still have to use it carefully. Ignoring everyone's confused eyes, Zhang Tian's face slightly sighed and his heart was filled with emotions. I've been reborn. Apart from controlling many supreme techniques, my biggest advantage is that I have foresight and have the initiative. Although this fist is invincible, it has changed history, affected the present and affected the future. Isn't this lifting a rock and smashing my own foot? His gaze pierced through the layers of void as if he had reached the area filled with evil aura. I hope the butterfly effect is not that strong. The time when the evil-infested ridge's treasure will not change too much. Otherwise, I'll be caught unprepared. In the next few days, Zhang Tian sat in Han City, assisted by Feng Jinlong and the other 3 dukes. Princess Mou also cooperated closely. Crown Prince Dongfang Ding acted quickly. With a thunderous momentum, he screened and purged the southern dukes who followed the Purple Shan Marquis. The elites who sincerely repented were stripped of their hereditary titles and fiefs. They were changed to civil officials and generals to atone for their crimes. The Marquis Xianxia and the other diehards who had close ties with the Purple Shan Marquis were all killed and their families annihilated. The mediocre ones were stripped of their titles and fiefs. They were demoted to commoners and exiled to the border. Due to the suppression of Zhang Tian, who possessed terrifying strength and was renowned for his ferocity, Dongfang Ding didn't suffer any substantial hindrance in dealing with the matter, and it was like a hot knife through butter. Sigh, Dongfang Ding has won over Saint Xiqing. The empire will be as stable as Mount Tai. Whoever dares to betray the royal family will end up like the Purple Shan Marquis and the Marquis Xianxia. When the Marquis of Xianxia and the other 200 people were escorted to the guillotine and turned into dust under the bombardment of large magic tools, countless dukes who were watching the ceremony were uneasy. At this moment, they no longer dared to have any thoughts of rebelling against the royal family. When the Marquis of Xianxia and the other henchmen were publicly executed, it also announced that the turmoil in the empire had finally come to an end. Chapter 1962. In the easternmost part of the Saint Origin world, a streak of green light streaked across the sky at an unimaginable speed. Moreover, this escape light appeared and disappeared from time to time. Sometimes it drilled into the mountains and sometimes it appeared in the sea of clouds tens of thousands of miles away. Obviously, the owner of this escape light was very careful and stealthy. No one knew whether he was being hunted or not. He really didn't chase me. Hua Xiangrong ran as fast as she could until she saw the words Luoying Sect hanging high in the sky. Then she breathed a long sigh of relief. However, she still glanced behind her with lingering fear as if she had just escaped death. Along the way, she was worried that Zhang Tian would catch up with her and kill her. But she never expected that Zhang Tian didn't chase her from the beginning to the end. He was just scared for nothing. Zhang Xiqing is really audacious. Does he completely ignore the dignity of the Luoying sect? Does he think that our Luoying sect can't kill him because we don't want to? How preposterous. Hua Xiangrong glanced at the vast sect and suddenly felt a little annoyed. She was so angry that her plump chest heaved violently and almost burst out of her clothes. The territory of the Luoying sect was no less than that of a country. Cultivation consumed countless natural materials and earthly treasures. In particular, large sects were supported by many external industries, which formed countless cities, businesses, and so on. Between the mountain ridges, there were numerous exquisite buildings that were extremely elegant. They did not pursue height or grandeur but instead had a natural feeling. They complemented the lofty mountains, steep ridges, long rivers and plants and were completely natural. They stretched for hundreds of miles and one could not see the end of it with a glance. Looking at these buildings, the aura of vitality and the aura of civilization rushed to the face. The whole world was full of vigorous vitality which made people feel refreshed. On these mountains, inside and outside the buildings, There were a large number of practitioners and mortals coming and going. There was an endless stream of people and carriages, which made the place extremely prosperous. Day and night didn't stop. Night came. Inside and outside, the entire sect was filled with fireworks and silver flowers, and the lights were shining brilliantly. Beyond these buildings, there were tall mountains floating in the sky. They were surrounded by clouds and mist, and they were in picturesque disorder. Flowers were in full bloom. These mountain peaks stretched far into the distance, like the scales of a giant dragon. No one knew how many there were. Even with Hua Xiangrong's strong divine awareness, she could not see the end of them at a glance. This was the deepest part of the Luoying sect. The core area was called the Heaven Pulse Mountain. According to the legends, it was an unfathomable dragon vein in the entire Saint Origin world. It was famous in the immemorial era, but now it was occupied by the Luoying sect. After pinching a talisman, Hua Xiangrong sped up again. After several flashes, she also appeared on a floating mountain. This mountain peak wasn't tall, but the scenery was beautiful. Lingji mushrooms, ginseng, immortal peaches, white deer and white apes grew everywhere. All kinds of flowers bloomed and many spiritual waterfalls flowed. It was a small and exquisite paradise. It belonged to Saint Qianma. Fresh flowers covered the mountains and plains, as bright as the clouds and brocade. Walking in it was like taking a stroll in a painting. Nothing more beautiful could be imagined. All kinds of colorful birds were flying and shuttling about, and butterflies were also dancing. Some butterflies were so huge that they were like palm leaf fans. Hua Xiangrong even saw a butterfly about the height of a person in the depths of the flowers. It flapped its wings and the pollen on its body was flying in all directions. It was like a dream. These butterflies are all my teacher's pets. Any one of them has the cultivation of Yuan-Ing realm, and the individual strength is not inferior to mine. When Hua Xiangrong looked at the butterfly, the colorful butterfly, which was as tall as a person, also sensed her. A strong rule emanated from the butterfly, but it stopped as soon as it came into contact with the rule. Hua Xiangrong smiled slightly. This butterfly knew Hua Xiangrong and it just played with her. But if it was an intruder, even if she was in the God transformation realm, she would probably be killed on the spot. Hua Xiangrong went up the mountain along the winding path of flowers, which was as complicated as 9 twists and 18 turns. These flowers seemed to faintly form a grand formation. If it wasn't for her being extremely familiar with every single plant and tree here and being deeply aware of the profundities within them, she would probably have fallen into this grand formation and transformed into a pile of bones before being absorbed by the flowers like spring mud. Hundreds of flowers were in full bloom all year round. The whole mountain and valley were full of warm and moist air. It was naturally condensed and formed, and it was like spring all year round. Even the soil on the ground was full of the fragrance of flowers. For thousands of years, the petals of flowers fell into the soil and formed flower mud, which itself was an unparalleled spiritual medicine. If it was used on mortals, it could even make them grow flesh and bones. The mountain was covered with clouds and mist. Suddenly, there was a bright light in front of her. Through the clouds and mist, she could see the sun hanging in the sky, sprinkling thousands of golden rays, which also plated the sea of clouds with a layer of golden edge, which looked magnificent and dazzling. At this time she was already halfway up the mountain on a huge platform. The ground of this platform was crystal white, and there were many exquisite cracks in a layer of enamel, which looked like porcelain. At first glance she could tell that it had been smelted by the supreme genuine fire, refined into the law and integrated with Gangqi. Even the full blow of a God transformation realm expert could hardly leave a mark on it. This platform was equivalent to a public square. It was able to accommodate 10,000 people. However, it was completely empty at the moment. In the depths of the square there was a cave palace. There was no building material, as if the whole mountain was used as the foundation and it was hollowed out on the top. Saint Qianma was so generous that she had built a mountain into a palace. As soon as Hua Xiangrong stood still, a female cultivator in a white Daoist robe, with her hair tied up in a high bun, a delicate face and eyes as calm as a lake. Her temperament was elegant and she had a sense of tranquility. Hua Xiangrong hurriedly knelt on the ground with a complex expression of reverence, fear and panic on her face, and said in a trembling voice, "Master, I pay my respects to you." Marquis Purple Robe was besieged by the national master of the Eastern Empire. I was incompetent and couldn't stop them, which led to the destruction of Marquis Purple Robe Mansion. Even the bone-melting earth mirror was broken, and junior sister apprentice Sue was unfortunately killed. I'm incompetent, I'm guilty, and I've let you down. Please punish me severely. Even the bone-melting earth mirror could be broken? Was it the joint attack of several half-saints and sages of the Eastern royal family? Saint Qianma's white and crystal face, which was like a beautiful jade, was slightly moved, but she soon calmed down and asked in a deep voice. The bone-melting earth mirror was the magic treasure that Zi Qianmo relied on to become famous. After being refined by her several times, it contained the law of the sun and the power of the sky. In her view, this treasure was too powerful. With this treasure, Su Xiaotang